Welcome to another episode of the CarryTrainer Higher Line podcast. Hey guys, welcome to yet another episode of the CarryTrainer Higher Line podcast. We are now in the 200s of these episodes. I've got a guy I've tried to get on for a couple of years. He was busy. He just recently retired. I've got Bill Blowers of Tap Rack Tactical. And guys that listen or watch this program know that we don't really talk about guns and gear or any of that shit, but more the stuff that makes the individuals who we are. So, Bill, welcome. I
Thanks.
appreciate you taking the time to do it. Just to kind of set the stage, tell people a little bit who you are. Like, why should somebody know you?
I don't know why they should know me. Retired cop. Prior to that, I was in the Army for 6 years. It's kind of my introduction to tactics and, I guess being serious about, weapons and that kind of thing. Spent 6 years in, got out, became a cop up here in Washington State. Worked for a small agency for a little less than 2 years and then lateral to a different department and then stayed there for a total of 25 and a half years. Along that route, got involved with the firearms program, became a firearms instructor for the organization, started trying to look at, especially then and probably still some today, is that law enforcement firearms training is a lot of guys that are in the gun industry and that shoot well. Lots of critique about what agencies are doing with firearms programs. So, and I was one of those guys being within it. And so started looking outside law enforcement training and what are other guys doing and that kind of thing. And then try to implement some of that into what we were doing at the organization. Also on the SWAT team for a long period of time, I was teaching at the Washington State Basic SWAT course, which is a state-run at that time, state-run school through the Washington State Tactical Association. And doing that, meeting a bunch of SWAT guys around the state as that school got ran, and then they just start asking me and other guys, hey, you did a small block on breaching or a small block on ballistic shields or whatever. Talk to my TL, can you come and give us a class on that type of thing? And so me and a friend started a company in 2003, I think it was, and then we're just using our vacation time to go teach. And then that he had other stuff going on, other fires happening. And so we disbanded that company in 2006, and I started Tap Rack and started teaching by myself until I retired in 2018. At that time, having to use vacation and stuff, I was doing maybe 12 to 14 courses a year, kind of a thing. I'm working full time, obviously, and I just enjoyed the heck out of it, man. And I guess if you believe people, guys were telling me the training was good and they were appreciating what I was trying to get done with them, and so I started looking at becoming the retirement gig full time. And so leading up to 2018, as I hit the 25-year mark, I retired almost 6 years ago to within the next week here, I've been retired for 6 years. Anyway, wanted to get, start trying to push the thing outside of Washington State and the Pacific Northwest and just very fortunate, man. Things kind of fell together for me real nice. And now I get to run around the country and meet good Americans and good cops and just do training for a living. So it's been pretty nice.
You've got some fairly strong opinions on certain things. Like if somebody noodles around the internet and finds you talking about topics, you don't normally mince words about things. Would you say that's accurate?
Man, I think the internet has beat me down a little bit.
Wait, what do you mean?
You just sometimes, man, you look at stuff or you see stuff and you wonder where did this guy come up with this thing and so I used to be way more trying to dispel those type of things. And ultimately, what I figured out is it's just wasted effort, right? If you believe that the world is flat, there's really not much I'm going to do to change your perception of that. Particularly on social media where it's just so clogged with stuff. And so I think I've kind of backed away from that. I will say on the training side of the house, I am not very dogmatic. That if you come to the weapons courses, I mean, one of my favorite sayings is instructors that tell you this is a way, but not the way. very early on, I would start asking, well, then what are the other ways, right? If all you're showing me is a way, then that implies there are other ways, and maybe you don't like those ways, but maybe I would like those ways.
Mm.
And so I try not to be dogmatic in classes. I'm trying to show you a whole bunch of different options. We're going to prove whether the option that you like best is best by way of the shot timer or accuracy standards. And I think that just kind of helps guide dudes' decision making, man. I can feel I can feel like I like this till the cows come home. But if it's not giving me results and something else is, then I think you need to be logical about your decisions and put the feelings aside and go, okay, this is the thing, and recognize too that some of that's going to change, right? I am not the same shooter I am today. That I was, 30 plus years ago when I didn't know really anything, right? As a brand new
Mm.
cop coming into into the police world, I always took the gun serious because I think it is a serious responsibility, but I only know what I know, right? And so, I mean, heck, this week I broke a lot of stuff last year for whatever reason, and I'm already changing up manual of arm stuff on the rifle I have, which I'm a left-handed rifle shooter. I shoot pistols right-handed, but this new gun happens to have a left-handed bolt catch, or an ambi bolt catch on it. And I've been over the years just using my trigger finger right as a lefty to reach up and hit the normal bolt catch on reloads. And it just started putting it to the test. Going, I wonder if this gives me a speed advantages or an efficiency thing. And it would appear based on the shot timer that I'm getting some time back by just hitting that button with my right thumb or my right thumb. Excuse me, kind of like right-handed guys do already. So I'm trying to change my manual arms right now and break a 20 plus year habit. So I think that you got to be constantly looking at what you're doing and evaluating whether it is the thing. Sometimes it's a hardware issue, sometimes it's a software issue, and just trying to figure some of those things out. So I get on some things I am very very adamant that this is the goddamn way. Can I curse on here? Sorry.
I guess so.
since I just since I just did it, sorry, that one slipped out.
So, give me something that you're dogmatic about.
So a thing that I'm dogmatic about is if your intent is to get better at the thing, right, whatever that thing might be, and a lot of times it's we talk about firearms and this that, but it could be tactics, it could be physical fitness, it could be anything that you're trying to improve upon. Then I think you have to approach that with a plan, right? And how am I going to do this thing or get to the goal that I've set up for myself? And I think, again, there's a lot of old phrases out there where the intent is something, and then guys will misconstrue it. And one of those things is, don't worry about the outcome, think about the process. And I don't know how I'm supposed to develop a process if I don't know what my desired end
What the
state is.
outcome is? Right,
Yeah,
right.
I want to know, what am I trying to accomplish? And then from there, I will figure out what is the process to help me get to that point. It may change along the way. There's some of that stuff, right? And I mean, a big chunk, right? Working, I do a lot of law enforcement only classes, mainly because the facilities won't allow citizens to come into. I'm doing a NVG instructor course next week, and it's on a military base, right? That's the cops are using the military ranges to host this thing. So I couldn't allow a citizen to come anyway because a citizen can't bring a firearm onto the military base, right? I have to be escorted on by the cops. And so sometimes guys get frustrated by that, but it has nothing to do with me. I mean, I'm teaching open enrollment pistol and rifle classes right now where anybody can come to them. But anyway, so we're working with some of the teams right now. I'm like, man, what do you that within law enforcement, the qualification course seems to be the bar, right? And so if you pass the qual, you're good. And I know guys shoot better than their qual courses, but it just seems like sometimes, man, there is no systematic process to make me be as good as I can be over the course of a career versus just get me to the point where I can qual and then I can pass a drill, here and there type of thing. And so I don't know if that's the right answer to your question, but I mean, there's just some things that like that I'm very rigid on. You're either improving or, which is perfectly fine in some cases, you're trying to maintain what you have because what you currently have is good enough, man. Right. And maybe a simpler term of that I'm 57, I'll be 58 soon. I am not trying to be, the world champion power lifter anymore, right? The galactic champion of powerlifting. That's kind of stuff will break my old ass. But I do want to maintain a certain level of strength. And so now when I go to the gym, I'm not trying to get stronger. I just want to hold on to what I have as long as I possibly can. So I've changed the way I work out. And this happened years ago, right? As I became an older guy and nursing injuries over the course of a career and that kind of a deal. And so I think sometimes maintenance is good, right? You don't always have to be improving as long as where you're sitting at was already at a decent level. Does that make any dang sense to you?
Sure.
Yeah.
It seems like standards, whatever it might be, any field, somebody's got to set some type of baseline or standards. I make fun of shooting standards all the time. We've got a target that looks like a dick and balls. It's called the Pearl test. It's actually a pretty hard target to shoot well. The tip is a little tiny triangle that's about an inch triangle. It's really small. The shaft is like 5 inches by 2 inches, and then there's two balls. And anyway, I made it because all of a sudden, like 10 or 15 years ago, everybody had like a standard that you had to, come to Bill's class, and you probably have some, or go to, this guy's class, and you can get the standard patch or pin. But it became a thing, like where dudes, like Ernest Langdon's a friend of mine. People show up to class just to have an opportunity to get his fast coin, and like there's nothing wrong with that if that's your goal in life. But then I always think, like, so then what? So that you can do this like baseline of skills of drawing, shooting, reloading, and like now you got this little $8 fucking challenge coin. So what's that? What is it? Like what does that mean? And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's like, why go run a marathon? You're not getting paid to do it. You're doing to do it and test yourself. So the point of what's the goal, I think, is important. But uh, the citizens, I think, often it seems like there's this thing right now where in the shooting world, I was just watching old video last night where Fel Reed, the old cowboy action shooter that became like the Hollywood legend, that coincidentally his daughter's the one that was the set manager for the fucking shooting that happened with
With Baldwin.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Um, him and Cooper and who else was in that group of dudes? The old leather slap guys. And he like that was a like tiny core of individuals that like pushed the shooting arts. And then like everything changed so rapidly in the last 10 years where there's guys, there's a perfect case in point. A dude showed up to one of my classes in California like maybe 8 years ago. And I literally was like, here's the magazine. This is where it goes. Like, that's where he was. He hits me up last year and we're bullshitting. Hey, what's going on with you? And he sent me something, a video. I look at it, I'm like, shit, this guy's a USPSA grandmaster now and is like winning freaking regional matches. And it was probably 5 years after I had met him. I'm like, damn, like that's freaking awesome. But like he had this crazy goal, like to push the envelope for himself, and now he's shooting in major matches and winning shit.
That's
So
cool.
I guess what I was thinking about is it seems like there's a lot of non-military, non-law enforcement guys really like challenging standards and pushing that. And then you see um, kind of it's really a negative thing. You see a lot of shooter dudes, it's just like everyday Joe Schmoes that piss on local police because they're like, these guys fucking standards suck, or they get the state plow for their state police and they're like, this is ridiculous, look what I can do, not understanding how that shit is created or codified, or why it's created or codified. Like, talk about that a little bit.
So I think there's a couple of things. The standard stuff, right? So I've been running the company for a minute,
And
and
you have somebody delivering you coffee during our podcast?
no, I've just finished. I've just finished the pot, so I'm in good shape. But I wish I had it like you. That's pretty cool. So I remember going to Todd Green, if you remember that name, right? Which is
Well, we're
Langdon
just
took the
talking about go ahead.
yeah. So Langdon took the faster route from him, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
I said talking about
however the hell you want to get to it. But Todd was the first outside law enforcement trainer that I went to, right? I had gone to a bunch of different cop-based classes, and the academy is hosting this guy who was a cop or is a cop from wherever the hell. And so I'd been to that stuff, and obviously within the organization, I'm being, the cops that I work with and are on our firearm staff. are doing things. And I remember just going, man, I kind of need to see what else is out there, right? It's all becoming more of the same. As I went through, my own, I, I hate this word, but I'm gonna say it, my own damn journey, of trying to become a better shooter. And so I see Todd is coming. I don't know him from Adam. I don't know really shit about that world at all. I'm reading the thing. It's a range that is local to me, that I can drive to. I don't have to fly or do anything, ridiculous as far as spending a bunch of money up front. And so I get a hold of him and I say, hey, man, I'm a cop. Um, I don't want to create bad habits. So I want to come with my cop belt. Is that okay if I wear my cop belt? So I'm still training like a real fighting man should do and all this kind of nonsense. And he wrote back, he goes, yeah, dude, I don't care what you carry, right? You can bring whatever the hell you want to. So I was like, cool. So I signed up for the class, go out there and do shit. And I remember being amazed, right? There was, I mean, I was the only cop in the class, but there were some really, really proficient shooters out there. And I think some of my perception of what competition dudes was dispelled over that class. In addition, I picked up a lot of stuff in Todd's class that I had not heard before, both instructing cues, right? So I was already a firearms instructor for the agency, and seeing how he was teaching the material and kind of taking us through the path that he had figured out to get us to a level of proficiency that he was hoping for, at least improvement during the class. And it ended up just being a great experience. And I think the other thing too that was great is the dudes in the class who were very welcoming, right? Hey man, good on you to be out here, and the blah blah blah, and just I guess just kind of opened my eyes that there was a whole different world of shooting guns outside of law enforcement. And I think some of it, probably my internal concern. I mean, the cop bashing shit has been around for a minute, right? The cops sucking, and initially I would bristle up on that, but the reality of it is that it is true, right? The vast majority of cops in America don't shoot very well. They meet a minimum standard for the organization, and that is it. And so I had already been, there was forums at that time, right? Not social media crap. At least I wasn't involved in social media then, but I'd get on these different forums and hear the stuff that you were talking about, right? Cops, their qual sucks and they suck with guns and all this kind of stuff. So I was a little bit leery about going out there and then having to hear that type of shit. I think as cops in general, you'd be leery about. Well, my uncle got stopped by a cop and he was a real dickhead. Well, okay, I don't, dude. What's that? I mean, what's that got to do with me? I
It's
don't know.
always that,
You know,
that, yeah,
whatever. And so, but I didn't get any of that. I haven't gotten any of that, by the way. Right? It's always just been conversations about shooting and gear and equipment and that type of stuff. So overall, really good experience, man. I did not get a fast coin. I was I had the fastest time in that class, which was, I think, a direct result of Todd pushing me. I mean, I think I was already trying to shoot very well, but really didn't understand what I was trying to do. Does that make sense?
yeah.
And so during the classes, he's doing different things, and I remember light bulb moments happening, and I corked a miracle run, and I was super excited about it. I mean, as soon as I finished it, and he gave me the time, I think it was like a 5:46 fast drill or something, nothing ridiculous, but very, very fast for me at that time. I remember going, damn, I said it out loud, right? I said, I would have never thought I could do something like that. And his response was, why not? Right? And I
Yeah,
remember just thinking, he's right type of thing. So I think what law enforcement is missing, and probably some of it, like I said, is internal. They don't want to go out and be shown up by a guy that is a carpenter or a plumber or whatever the heck he does for a living when you're supposed to be the professional with the gun. So maybe some internal fear or concern about that. I think the other flip is not wanting to, be exposed to a group of dudes who are now going to hit you with some other, why do cops do this? Or look, have you seen this YouTube video? Yeah, man, I've seen it. Yes, it's shit. I mean, what do you want me to say about that? You know what I mean? And
sure.
so there's some of that crap, man. I think that those walls are coming down as more and more cops are getting into performance shooting, practical shooting. Whether they're competing or not, trying to ingrain some of that into the organization and seeing where our deficiencies lie. So I think a lot of that is helping on the standard stuff, man. I agree with you. I mean, going as I started to get out, and this guy gives you his patch and this and that. And Todd's class is one of those. I arrived, put my shit down. I'm getting my magazines loaded up for the day, and a fella came up, hey, put his shit on the same table as me. And he's like, hey, I'm Pete or whatever his name was. I'm Bill. Blah blah blah. We're just BSing. And he asked me, what can you shoot the fast drill in? I didn't even know what the hell the fast drill was at that point in
Right,
my life,
right.
right?
They
It's
were
like,
geeking out on it
yeah,
probably.
yeah. And I was like, I don't even know what that is, dude. And he goes, well, it's his drill, and you do this and this, and and at the end you get a coin for that. So I said, I don't know what I can shoot that in. I've never shot that drill at all. Um, so fuck if I know, right? I'm not even like right now. If you gave me a drill in my head, I'll start doing math. My draw time would be this. My split should be this. My blah, blah, and I can probably go, okay, I can or cannot do that right now based on my current skill set. I didn't even have that ability at that time, and so I was like, I don't know, man. And he goes, well, that's all I've been shooting for the last 2 months because I want to win the coin. And I remember kind of laughing. I goes that, and I said, that's all you've shot? And he goes, yeah, that's all I've been doing is shooting that drill because I want to win this coin. I remember thinking, well, that's dumb as fuck, right? It's like you said, it's an $8 coin, and then what are you going to do with it? You know what I mean? It's an heirloom now or some shit, and I just thought it was silly. And so going to different classes and shit, and this guy got his patch, and this guy has his coin, and whatever the hell it is. I always just kind of thought that shit was silly. So as I'm getting closer to retirement, I did not have any. I mean, there are drills that we'll shoot to verify learning has occurred on a specific skill. That's kind of how my brain thinks about it. And so I had a friend of mine who was a really good shooter, steel challenge guy, was shooting competition, other things. And I said, hey, man, I'll give you a free spot in the class. Can you just come and run the course for me? And then give me some honest feedback, because a lot of guys, hey, man, how was it? Well, it was good. Okay, well, that doesn't help me improve the class. You know what I mean? And
Mm.
based on who this dude was, I knew he would give me some no shit critique, right? And so he comes, he goes through the class, gives me the critique, but then at the end, and this kind of goes to your point, he said, "Hey man, I remember as a young shooter, as a younger guy trying to improve in this stuff. I think he said it was Benny Cooley, but don't quote me. He went through Benny Cooley's class, was high shooter, and I think Benny Cooley tore a patch off of himself, right? So I don't know if that was like a tradition he was doing or what, but he presented my friend with this patch." And I remember kind of rolling my eyes going, okay, here it comes. He's going to tell me I need a coin or a patch or some shit. And that's exactly what he said. He goes, this is corny as hell now, but then based on the work I had put in, it was validation of a bunch of my effort. He goes, and I still have that patch today. In fact, I framed it and put it in my office, and he goes, it's nothing that defines me, but it was an important step in what I was trying to achieve as a shooter. And so it has value to me. So I would suggest you do something like that. And I remember thinking, you know what I mean?
Competition breeds excellence, I've heard it said.
Yeah, which is a great phrase, right? And so and while I mean, this dude can shoot. I mean, he at the point he went to this class, right? But I kind of understood his thing, and I remember, the thing about being a guy that was involved in sports my whole life. You go back sometimes, you get nostalgic, and you look at some of the old trophies or dumb shit that you've collected over a life of doing that stuff, and at the time I really didn't think much about him. I've never been that kind of dude that hoards those type of awards, right? It's just a thing. But in hindsight, I can see now where looking back, it brings back memories and just kind of, I guess, refreshes you, maybe reinvigorates you, whatever the heck it is. So I do have it now. Mine are a little bit different. They're random, and so I don't have a standard that you shoot that is the same for every class. I have, if it's a pistol class, I have a bunch of different drills that I have come up with over the years, or stolen and modified for the different guys. The drill you're talking about with your penis target type of thing, and so I'll just randomly pull those out of a hat. And so you got to shoot all four of them at a certain level. To get a goddamn patch. And my point is,
That's cool.
I don't want you to be good at a drill. I want you to be good at shooting. And if you're good at
Right.
shooting, then you should be able to get past any drill type of thing. And so that's how I work it. I don't know. Initially, man, I bought 400 patches. I thought, because I don't think I'm a very good shooter, internally. And so I thought, well, I'm gonna be handing these patches out like candy, right? Every class is gonna have like 17 some bitches walking out with a patch. And that has not been the case. And I don't think it's that the drills are incredibly hard, but putting four of them together consistently in a row, that is the very, very hard part. Does that make sense?
Sure. I think the other side of that is master class GM level shooters aren't showing up to fucking training. They're the ones, I mean, they train, but they're not the guy that's got his list every summer to go to fucking 9 classes.
True.
That guy, he's in the basement dry firing, breaking strikers and doing all that kind of stuff on his own. So I think there's that too. I'm not against it. I just think it becomes a I I I ask guys all the time, can you see your dick? I'm not fixated on penises, but like if you're going to go spend this performance shooting, which I think is fantastic. Years ago, group of guys I used to train with, one of them's was a national IDPA champion. Les Keys Martoni is his name. He goes by Les Pepperoni on the internet. Shot for Wilson Combat, shot for the Langdons for a while, shot Glocks and CZs. He's really good. He kind of was a mentor to me about 20 years ago. We were both shooting IDPA, and he was far better than I was. And then he just went, nuts, went deep into the weeds. He called it chasing the dragon. And I think he's got two national production titles now. Good dude, super cerebral guy. But I bring him up because we'd train together, and he'd always have his competition rig on. And I go, why don't you ever train with your carry gun? Like you never train, I never see you with, and this guy carries like a little fucking Kel-Tec with some nail polish on the front sight, and he can shoot the thing lights out. And he's a big man with big hands, and he pocket carries a little Kel-Tec everywhere. It's funny, but he competes with full size guns. So uh, he said to me, I'll train. We made a deal. He had to go start training jujitsu, and I had to start shooting my Beretta 92 more, but we both had to train with them inside the waistband. And all of a sudden, he's like the only guy at any USPSA matches shooting, especially at like a high level, shooting inside the waistband concealed. And he's winning matches against guys with open carry guns, shooting inside the waistband. This is probably about 10 years ago. And there were dudes that would do that, but like it, everybody's always looking for an edge, looking for an edge, looking for an edge. My thought always is like, I don't care about. So with met jujitsu last night, I'm with a guy that's telling me about some college football shit, and it's making him feel good, and I'm listening to it. But I'm like, but what can we do right now? Like you're 40 pounds overweight, this guy was, and he's like reminiscing of his college football days. Anyway, back to my point, I'm rambling. Like, why are we doing any of this? For me, it's so I can protect my family in the parking lot or wherever. I'm not a SWAT cop. The president's, I joke with students about this. Biden's not going to call you and be like, dude, I need you to grab your fucking AR-15 and your Glock 43, and a helicopter is going to pick you up and dump you into Ufukistan to go collect a bad guy. None of us, you included, the president's not calling you, right? So,
Yeah.
like, what level of proficiency do I need? And I guess, like, is enough ever enough? Probably not, but like, what's good enough? Like, and that's where standards come from, right? Like, what's good enough? And it seems so easy for like the fat range guy to be like, ah, that's fucking good enough. And then it gets dumber and dumber because we don't, and it's always in flux too. Like, our mutual friend Jared Reston, he looks at certain things a certain way because of a couple of life experiences, and he will argue the shit vehemently. And I have other friends that have other life experiences and they disagree with him, but like both of their points are relevant to them. So I guess that's kind of like a talking point. As a guy that's trained hundreds, thousands of cops in your state and abroad, how do you help somebody arrive at good enough? Because there's a point of diminishing return too. Like you're lifting weights, your elbows are fucked from tendonitis. Like, did you do yourself any favors? I've had tendonitis so bad from dry fire, I couldn't hold a bar of soap. Like, what fucking good did I do myself?
Yep. Yep. Been fighting that myself, man. And it's an interesting conundrum sometimes, right? And so yeah, the downside. So I can say, hey, man, what's good enough? If the objective is defend myself and my family, what is the measure of that, right? And the problem is I don't know who the adversary is going to be, right? And so
Sure.
if my adversary is Rob Latham, then I am not nearly good enough. You know what I'm saying? If my adversary is just an average street mope, of the type that I had, I wrestled for over 25 years, none of those guys shoot good, right? They just don't. And so you look at there are different studies been done, and I think the FBI did one where they went into prisons and interviewed cop killers, and and shit like that. And we're like, what do you do with the gun? And are you training? And, this and that. And that study became prevalent, at least in law enforcement land for a while, because almost all of those guys said, yes, I train with my guns, but they don't quantify what that means, right? And so if I think back to my own career early on, was I training with my guns? And the answer was yes. I qualified twice a year at the first agency that I was hired at, right? So I would fire 50 rounds per 100 rounds per year. But
Mhm.
in my untrained and undisciplined mind, that was training. Does that make sense? Because I
Sure.
passed the qual course. Therefore, I must be good enough, to go out and handle myself on the street if it comes to a gunplay type of thing. And of course, that's not nearly good enough. So defining what that is very, very difficult, man. I think I want to be good enough so that the average bad man on the street that would try to engage me in a gunfight, it should be a functional equivalent of a kindergartner challenging me to a fist fight. That's how badly offside I want this fight to be. Does that make sense? Um,
Sure.
and and so I don't know how or what that is exactly, but I'm going to try to do as much as I can with the time and resources that I have. And so, as a working dude, right, as a SWAT cop, and in my case, we trained 30 hours a month. 10 of that was just shooting. But I also happened to work for an organization that had an indoor range that was open 365, 24/7. We could shoot at 3 o'clock in the morning, and no one gave a shit because it was, well insulated. You couldn't hear anything. And that includes short barrel rifles without suppressors on them. That agency also said, we don't care how much you shoot. We got this room over here is full of bullets. You can shoot to your knee high and brass every damn day, and nobody will ever say anything to you about that. And I
That's
remember when I
cool.
heard that the first time when I got hired there, my second agency, not coming from the little one, I thought I'm gonna test that, right? We'll see. Uh, and so, I mean, there was, as a graveyard copper, right, which I worked graves for a long time as an early copper because that's where the jazz is at and that's where the excitement is, and all this kind of horseshit. But like almost every jurisdiction, somewhere around 3 o'clock in the morning, things tend to die down a little bit, right? There's still crooks out there breaking into your cars and shit, but it's just no one's awake to see them and report it. So you got to find it. And it's just hard to find that shit sometimes. So usually 3 o'clock in the morning, shit's dying off, and you got about an hour and a half till about 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. And then morning traffic is beginning. People are waking up and finding their car busted into, and now reports are coming in and that type of thing. And so every night, once I got on range staff anyway, and I had a key to the palace, I would go in there and I would shoot from 3 to 4:30 in the morning. Keep my radio on, of course, and that didn't always happen if you got clogged with calls or whatever the heck. But you get the idea, right? I was shooting a lot at that point. And I remember, just there were things I could identify, right? Hey, so I'm having some difficulty with marksmanship at distance, right? Hitting what I want to hit at that stage of my life. And so I spent an inordinate amount of time just shooting stuff at distance, but I really didn't have any idea how to get better. And what I tell dudes in class a lot is I did not play any sports growing up that required me to distance run, right? That was the punishment. So if you fucked up in football, coach to take a lap, and we had what they called the perimeter, which was just a huge sports field complex. And in hindsight, it was probably about a half a mile total, right? If you ran the fence line. And so if you missed a block, you missed a hey, go, run the perimeters, which is kind of a punishment thing, right? I joined the Army, and of course, running at that stage in history, right? When the Cold War was going on and shit, everything was about them long ass runs. And so I just remember running, go run some bitch, and I fucking hated it. But I remember a point in time in basic training where we're around some, whatever 5-6 mile grinder type of thing, and it dawned on me I can run all the way home at this pace, right? But I'd gotten used to it through repetition. And then fast forward my military career where I came back to Fort Lewis, which is home of Second Ranger Battalion and at First Special Forces Group. And there's a lot of sports docs there. And shit, one of my company commanders had been a Ranger platoon leader and then left the Ranger Battalion, was out in the big Army. But he knew one of these sports docs, and the guy's thing was all about performance and this and that. And the CEO brought him in. He's going to work with the platoons and try and get our APFT scores better and whatnot. And I remember him coming and he said, hey, man, we're going to run a 2 mile run as part of the APFT. Army physical fitness course at that time, because we're going to run 2 miles today. We're going to get a baseline of everybody. So everybody ran 2 miles, and he was very passionate about, run it as hard as you can. Goddamn, this is, we really need to see what you're capable of, type of thing. So we run the 2 miles. He gets the baseline, and then the next time he came work on opportunity, he goes, hey, I've reviewed everybody's run times. We are not going to run anymore for the next 90 days, and I'm going to decrease everybody's run time by at least 60 seconds. And I'm going, what the fuck is he talking about, right? Because I'm just used to, here we go, on the way, doing all that kind of horse shit. And so we did a whole bunch of cardio-based shit, aerobic and anaerobic, different workout stuff that I hadn't been exposed to in the military. And I'll be goddamn in 90 days if we didn't take that summer gun. And I to it right on the button. I was 61 seconds faster. And so my initial thing, that graveyard shooting that I was doing, was what the Army had initially shown me, right? If you want to get better, then just do it.
Volume.
Yep, just do it, right? And then this other dude, years later, as I'm a little bit more mature in life, he isolated the things that we want you to get better at the run, and here's a whole bunch of different things we can be doing to improve that shit. The graveyard shooting I was doing was just keep pounding rounds, dude, and I got better. But holy smokes, in hindsight, I wasted a lot of time and a lot of ammunition trying to chase that goal, right? And so later in life, I think I'm trying to isolate again. What do I want to do, man? What do I want to be the outcome? And then let me figure out what the process is going to get me there. And it's, I mean, you're a physical fucking dude. If I want to bench press 400 pounds, you don't just put 400 pounds on the bar and go, nope, didn't get that today, and then try again tomorrow.
Right.
You know what I mean? You come in and you're doing a bunch of stuff, and you're not just flat benching, right? It would be, let me get inclines, let me do everything that's going to increase all of the muscle groups that are going to allow me to get that bench press on. Because the worst advice you give me is, hey man, go flat bench every day for the next 90 days and let's see what happens. I will probably get stronger. Agreed?
Sure.
I'm getting stronger. But 90 days of focused effort and intensity doing different things toward that end goal of just getting stronger at the flat bench is going to reap bigger benefits faster. And so time and resources was a thing that got me there. I heard some footsteps on my wife's coming. So that may be the thing. The end of my career, I was running the training unit, and so out my office window, I could see the range. So every day, I got my work day ended at 6 p.m. The commute in Seattle region is horrible, and so I could either sit in traffic for an hour and a half, or I could go shoot for 40 minutes and still get home at the same time once traffic had died down. And so time and resource now, right? I got time to go down there. I got the resources, obviously a range and plenty of bullets to do the thing. And so at this point, I'm a little bit smarter about my training and what I'm trying to achieve. And so I got exponentially better, shorter duration, but with a focused effort going down there working on stuff. And I think sometimes that's what guys forget, right? They'll go to a range session and they just shoot, right? They'll go shoot some stuff. But what is it exactly that you're trying to do? And that, the same thing goes with drills, man. I'll see guys, I've been shooting this drill and I can't get it. Well, what have you been doing? I've just been shooting the drill over and over again. Okay, well, where are you losing the time? You know what I mean? And so if your draw is 2.5 seconds in an 8-second drill, you are wasting a shitload of your time just getting the gun out and firing the first shot. So let's work on the draw and let's see what that does to the overall drill
isolation.
time. Yeah, and so one of the things, I mean, talk about in class, right? We work skills in isolation. And just like NBA players spend time in practice doing nothing but shooting free throws, there's no pressure on them, right? It's just shoot the free throw, man, because that's easy money. That's free money. If you get fouled and end up at the free throw line, we want you to sink those easy points. And so, of course, they spend time practicing that. And so we're going to spend time practicing just the draw, just the reload, just this, just that, just the grip, just recoil management, whatever you break it down. And then we're going to test those typically within a drill, right? And so working on that NBA player, he's spending time free throwing, he's spending time bounce passing, chest passing, dribbling left and right handed, doing all these things. And then the coach says, all right, typically warm up, right, is over with those skills. Now let's run some plays. And so on the shooting side, at least in my head, how I think about it is a drill is a play, right? And so I'm going to work the skills in isolation and then put them together in the big play. And are my skills staying consistent within the big play, or is something happening, right? I can uncork a single shot, 1 second draw consistently on a USPSA target A zone at 7 yards. No sweat. But if I add that into a drill, do I see a time addition? And if there is, why is that happening to me? Well, I want to make sure my grip is better. I want to make, because there's going to be multiple bullets being fired. I don't want to be at the edge of the top corner of the A zone. I want to be in the dead center, because when I start bringing rounds at speed, I want that bigger margin for error in case something breaks down along the way, versus if I start there, I'll end up chucking some C's into it. So that's adding time while my brain processes. And so it's now the issue becomes, what can I see faster, and what is my index point on the draw? Can I improve that to put me in the middle sooner so I don't waste the time? You know what I mean?
Sure.
And I think sometimes dudes aren't willing to do that stuff. So working through the drills, and then the final thing is the scrimmage, right? We're gonna have a scrimmage against the other high school next week, right? And kind of see all of our shit's working. But for us in the fighting game, to me, the only that is going to be force on force with simulations, and then the gun stuff should be run in the background. Can I execute tactics, make decisions, do all that stuff, and the guns are just working along the way. Does that make sense? Kind of, sort of. All of that's leading me to the big game, and of course, we ain't going to go play the big game, right? I'm not going to intentionally go to the shitty part of town and try to get into a gunfight to see if all my shit's coming together from the scrimmage.
Sure.
You just hope it is. Does that make sense? And so I think just building that type of thought process, that type of plan, whatever the hell you got. And I think the biggest thing is time and resources, man. So as a single income young policeman with two children, cop wages, I did not have a lot of time and resources. That makes sense. I'm working full time. I also got two small kids. I don't have much money to spend on my own gear to improve what the department issued me. Blah 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 till the cows come home. And so, I think sometimes I got to be realistic with what my goals are based on what my time and resources are. Make sense, kind of, sort of.
Yeah.
And it's just hard, man, right? The internet will tell you that. Why the fuck are we doing this right now? Me and you should be dry firing or going to jits or doing PT right now, or every minute of every day needs to be spent being a better fighting man, type of thing. And then, but that's not realistic, right? I mean, I still have quality of life. I like to go fishing. You know what I mean? I
Sure.
like to
Have a
throw I
beer,
like to throw a line in
listen
the
to some
water,
tunes.
right? Yeah, I like to spend time with my wife. I like to do all those fucking things, and so I have to make time for all of those things in my day because it is what it is, right? Now, I would tell you that if I said, "Hey, Mickey, however you make your bucks, right? I am going to pay you $1 million a year. Right? You are now working for me. You're my employee. It's $1 million a year. I'm going to include a health plan that is ridiculous. You want to go get some gold teeth? It's on the house. No copay, no nothing. You can turn yourself into a woman if you want to, based on this incredible, free of charge, right? I'm going to give you a vehicle to drive every day, and gas is free. Wherever you live right now, I'm either going to purchase a piece of land near where you live, or if your land would support it, I'm going to build you a range on that land. Every single day, I'm going to have a semi truck show up with pallets of bullets. It's going to poop them out the back, and you have an unlimited ammunition supply. Whatever your favorite handgun is, I'm working with that manufacturer, and they're going to send you a brand new gun every single week. So as you break them based on this incredible volume of fire you're putting this gun through, you just got a brand new gun to pick up and go to work with it. But at the end of this year, right, 365 days of this level of support, I need you to shoot a bill drill into the A box on the head A box on a USPSA target and do it in less than 2 seconds, which Tim Herron just did, by the way, if you haven't seen that. Do you
I
think you
mean,
could accomplish that? Could you do
with
that?
that kind of resources, I
Yeah.
mean, it's totally possible. Sure.
So if you can do that 365 days from now, I'll extend your contract for another 365 days. But if you can't, then you have to reimburse me for all the shit. With that type of motivation, could you run a bill drill? And you get 3 tries. I don't expect you to be a miracle
Three
man.
tries?
You get 3 tries. So
I,
three.
I would take that contract.
Me too. I'd take it all day long because that's my job now, right? The resources are available to me. The range is right here. I can go shoot whenever the hell I want to. I've got all the ammunition, and I wouldn't even be concerned about it. I would
Mhm.
absolutely be able to do that within 3 tries at the end of this year. I would take that contract all day long, but I won't take it right now. Does that make sense? Because I don't
Mhm.
have that time and resource available to me to get to that level of proficiency where I could guarantee you that within 3 tries in a year. You know what I'm saying?
I do. I
And so,
remember Todd Jarrett one time saying that he fired 1 million rounds, that he wasted 1 million rounds before he figured out how to train himself to shoot. I
yeah,
think that's probably true. That's probably true with a million things.
yep.
Guitar, sailing, making souffles. I'm sure it's true with everything, but it seems like, dude, I remember in the 90s, which isn't that awful long ago, um, Masayu, Ron Avery, Jarrett, Latham. There's like a handful of like 30, 40 dudes. And There was no frickin' go on the internet and look at how to hold a pistol
Yeah.
or even a book. There was a few books, Enos's book, which is more head stuff, but there was not like 98 million videos of here's basically how to put your hands on a grip that will get you most of the way there and then sort it out. And so I remember paying and going to some classes. A guy by the name of Bob Housingay. Bob helped Ayub create a lot of what became the LFI program in the 80s, and then now what I think he called the MAG program or whatever. Ayub was or Housingay was a police chief in Comanche, Iowa. At the time, there was no GM. He was a master class shooter. And there's some videos of him. He does a double bill drill with a revolver in like 4 point something seconds with the fucking reload, with the revolver. And he was like this not old, but he's this crusty fucking cop. And he did a class called Shoot Till You Puke. And you showed up with like a couple thousand rounds of ammo. That's what the class was called. And you left and your hands were just like destroyed. And I thought it was stupid, but it was exposure to a bunch of recoil and exposure to a bunch of sight pictures, something most people wouldn't force themselves to do with instruction. And I remember in like 2 or 3 days in this little town in Western Illinois, out in the country on a summer day, like I went from like wherever I was on the totem pole of shooting, like I surpassed like a year of fucking around plinking in the woods just from like somebody forcing me to pay attention to stuff I didn't even think about paying attention to, like silly shit, stop looking over your sights, or why is your grip coming apart when you're shooting, or why you just, little shit that you see every day. But
Yep.
like that, just him being exposed to somebody that taught me what I didn't know was pretty huge. I remember that epiphany, and I trained with him a bunch over the years. He's retired now. You still see him out and about. It was him, Ayub, Ken Hackathorn. They had a program. It was called Midwest Shooting Group, I think, or Midwest Training Group, MTG. And John Krupa, I think, if you ever remember him,
And
did
then know
this
the name.
stuff with those guys at that time. But neither here nor there. It's like our shooting program or our training program. I wouldn't call it a shooting program. Our training program, we start out with one question: why are you here? Why'd you come here? And I want to shoot better. Okay, define better. I want to be faster. Okay, define faster. How far away is the target? How big's the target? Stupid shit like that. And it's like guys are like, "What the fuck? I didn't think about that." Are we shooting a barn from 3 feet away, or are we shooting a nickel from 100 yards away?
Right.
Like what? And why? Why are you going to try to shoot a nickel with your Glock 100 yards away? That sounds stupid. Like that sounds like a pretty hard thing to work towards. Possible, maybe, but like a hard thing to work towards. And I think in this space, this idea of performance shooting, sometimes I think it's a little ridiculous when those dudes like don't think about anything else. Like I think that's where I was kind of going with this thought process. When we don't think about anything else but just I want to get Bill's coin, or I want to get this guy's patch, and
Right.
then it's just that. That's great. That's cool until one of my buddies grabs you by the face and stuffs your head into the fucking dirt, and you can't do nothing about
Yep.
it.
Yep.
Or you gotta carry your kid up 2 flights of stairs to get out of a burning building, or I don't know, just making shit up. But it seems like we get really myopic about this sword fighting shit.
I agree, man. I think it's there's so much that's just odd, right? It's so I train with Mark Smith a little bit, right? He and I do some joint class together. Mark's a GM, if you don't know, that's JBS training group.
Mm-hmm.
And so we, it's a what we call 3 day ballistic experience, both pistol and rifle, and he and I both teach chunks of it. And so Mark teaches the draw piece, right? And so he asked the class, right? Hey, what's a good draw time? And you hear guys start spitting numbers out, right? And he goes, well, what are we talking about right now, right? And he goes, so I have not defined to you the distance or the
Yeah,
accuracy
what are we
standard.
shooting? Yeah, what
Yeah,
are we shooting?
but I think that the internet, to some degree, has inadvertently brainwashed dudes into the draw time must be this, but they don't consider what the actual standard in the distance was to achieve that draw time. Does that make sense? And
Yeah,
it's just odd sometimes how the priorities, and on the cop side of the house. So you have some background sticking pieces of wood together, right? Is that what you told me earlier?
sure.
Right. And so you don't have any background in that now for the sake of this argument, right? You don't know shit about sticking pieces of wood together. And I put out an ad saying, no experience required. I need a fellow that's willing to learn how to stick some wood together. And you're like, well, I'm in, right? A good wage, whatever the hell it is. And so you come to work for me. And so me and you are building these small little ass houses. There ain't a square corner in these motherfuckers. They ain't to code, right? Not plumb at all.
Mick and Bill's shithole houses.
Yeah, that's the name of the company. Build shithole houses. Come on and get you one, right? Cheap as fuck.
Yeah,
And so, but every single day as you are building this shit, I'm telling you, hey man, that's great. That is awesome. You are doing real good. You know what I mean? You are good at this shit right here, type of thing. Would you start to believe it? You don't have, and you
sure,
ain't never been in nobody else's house before. Does that make sense? All
sure.
of a sudden you're like, God damn, I'm a master fucking carpenter up in this son bitch, right? And then you finally go to a school or something, and they're like, what the fuck, dude? Right? Here are some things that you might want to consider, and you're like, I kind of fucking suck at this. You know what I'm saying? On the cop side of the house, if you think about what happens with a new cop, particularly these days, right? When I first started, a lot of guys coming in, when you would ask me, have you ever shot a gun before? They'd be like, yeah, man, well, I grew up hunting. I've shot some pistol. I mean, nothing crazy. You get occasionally that guy that could shoot a handgun real good, but most of the time it's just some basic understanding of shooting. You with me here? And then you're now having them come out of a holster with some level of speed, and they're shooting a humanoid type of silhouette and all this kind of shit. And you'll go through the training process, and now they have passed the qual course, and not knowing anything else, you tell them, hey man, good job, you passed the qual. I think if people think about that, you'll start to understand why some cops think they are good enough, because everything they're being told within their little pond tells them that this unsquare ass house is solid. You know what I'm saying? And they start to believe it.
Just like how your little kid that did poorly gets a trophy.
Yeah,
Same kind of.
same shit, right? And so
Yeah, yeah.
it's just it's weird how sometimes if you don't understand the I'm not sure cops are to blame. It is the cop industry that is to blame for this. Does that make sense? Because you do get the crusty old range master, and this isn't everywhere, and this is a generalization. But by and large, as a 57-year-old cop at this point, been doing the job for a minute, right? If I was still working, whatever, a lot of agencies have pasture jobs, right? I'm 2 years away from retirement, man. Can I get stuff some fucking where? You know what I mean? So I don't have to work the road and go to these calls and all this kind of horseshit. And sometimes that is the range master position. And so it has nothing to do with the guy's proficiency at shooting or fixing guns or maintaining a range or doing it. It's just a place to put a fellow that's put in his time to get him closer to retirement. Not always. If there's cops listening to this, don't get mad at me. You guys know what I'm saying. And now that dude is affecting potentially firearms training within the organization. The other flip of this on the cop side is, so I don't give a fuck about tactics and shooting and this and that. I give a shit about FaceTime, right? And I'm always smiling and shaking your hand, and I'll be goddamn if I don't get promoted to sergeant real quick, and then lieutenant, and then captain, and then assistant chief, and now I'm a chief of police who doesn't know shit about shooting, but I am running an organization where shooting is required. And so I'll see a lot of administrations that now get involved in the firearms program, but they don't have the background or the depth to do anything with it. Does that make sense? But they're
Sure.
dictating what will get done based on their very, very small amount of knowledge. And so sometimes programs are stifled based on that command influence. And then the final thing is, and I've said this for years, is most chiefs of police and sheriffs, right? The actual sheriff, not deputies, they carry a gun, right? And so by most state standards, if you are a commissioned police officer, a certified police officer, then you must show some level of proficiency with your pistol, right? To maintain your peace officer certification, you got to be qualified, right? So now, hey, chief, and it's not that a hard qual as anything other than it is potentially a way to drive training, right? So if I make a qualification course that's very, very difficult and you can't achieve it, then the organization would now say, hey, Mickey, you're reporting to the range every day for the next 6 weeks to get better at shooting, because the qual standard is so difficult that you have to get better at shooting to pass it. Does that make sense? And you got to be qualified, because when you shoot somebody, they're going to ask, were you qualified at the point that this thing occurred? So now, hey, chief, here's this super hard qual. Do you really think the chief is going to put the time and effort into that when his job is shaking hands and kissing babies? The answer is no. And so what's he going to do? He has no choice but to say, we're not adopting that, because he knows personally he can't do it, and he will not dedicate the time to get better at it. And so that stymies some of the organizational issues. Does that make sense?
Sure.
So there's a whole lot of stuff going on. And I think if you tell your average copper that don't know shit about USPSA or the shooting order and that kind of stuff, if you ask him, hey man, do you shoot pretty good? He'll say yes. He'll say, yes, I am absolutely qualified to carry this handgun, and I believe I'm ready to be in a gunfight, because everything he's been told is that. Does that make sense? And
I go ahead.
I'm good. Basically finishing my thought there, man.
I was just going to say, I spent years involved in politics, running campaigns for people like sheriffs, states attorneys, things like that. And I tell, it's something that I kind of connect to with listeners and students frequently, that have like a Debbie Downer attitude towards police. I look at it like, well, the police chief is hired by your city council and mayor. You elected those fucking people. So if you don't like it, or your sheriff, or your state's attorney, or your state police in my home state, that guy is appointed by the governor. The governor is put in office by me and my buddies. So, like, I take ownership of that in my community. I've replaced the sheriff in our county. Myself and my friends ran a campaign and put a dude into office who just retired, and now he's got a great guy in there, because we didn't like the way that things were done at that sheriff's office. Uh, I think people should look at it from that point too, because it's not police chiefs, sheriffs. They are politicians. That's their job. They run political offices. If you don't like what they're doing, go affect the people that control their job.
Yeah, man, I agree. And I think the other thing too, man, and specific to cop shit, but it could be anybody, right? There's a lot of excuse making that occurs too, right? I mean, it's, well, the job, as a policeman, if you define the job, it is not to shoot folks. That's not the intent.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so, if you look at, well, so that if we look at statistically, right, the frequency of officer involved shootings in this country is pretty fucking low. When you think about a million cops working 24/7, 365, those incidents are very, very low. And so, as a chief of police, you look at it and you go, okay, what is the more high frequency shit that the officers are doing? Does that make sense? And so, I do want them to be better at interacting with the public. And so now training is going to be focused on, let's be better at interacting with the public. Does that make sense? There, almost every call, there are going to be clues that need to be gathered up. So I want the guys to be better trained at gathering the clues up. Does that make sense? Interviewing, not just the interaction with the public, but interviewing of criminal suspects and witnesses. There are methods that can be used to build that rapport, and then you get the statement that results in a conviction or whatever the case may be. So I need guys to be able to conduct good interviewing shit. All of these things need to be trained to the copper, and so again, time and resources. They are drivers, right? They drive every minute of every shift in a cop car, not just going fast, but just normal driving, right? So just defensive driving. Then there's the responding, lights and siren to an emergency call, and then there's pursuit driving if the state allows that. And so there's a whole bunch of crap that needs to get trained to a dude. And so when does the gun stuff fit into it? Does that make sense? Sure. And so the very little time in some cases. And so if the organization doesn't favor the gun, then you're going to see poorly trained cops with guns. And then the final deal is I've never been a chief of police. I haven't had to run an entire agency's budget. I have been responsible for the training unit's budget to include maintenance of the range, purchasing ammunition, guns, and all that kind of crap. And there ain't but so many dollars in that bucket, right? As the guy going to, hey man, we are ordering X amount of 9mm per year. I want to bump that up another 100,000. Well, where's that money going to come from now? Does that make sense? And so he's got to make a decision of how he's going to allocate the funds within the budget to get me what I want to, or go to the city council and say, give us some more money. Things have changed and we need to improve this piece. And then the city council can only say, no, you ain't getting that. You ain't getting that money. You know what I mean? And so there's a lot of variables with that stuff. It's interesting, you mentioned the resources available to do stay on the internet, right? And I mean, shit, there's dudes that have put their entire classes up on the internet if
Sure.
you want to sit there, right? And the deal is you still have to put in the work, man. So the information's out there, but if you ain't putting in the work and or you don't have the time and resources to put the work in, well then I mean, it is. I talked about Todd Green earlier, the first class I went to and whatever, and then I ended up going back to another class. He was back in the area again 2 years later, and it was a different class, aim fast, hit fast, instead of whatever the hell his shit, how he titled his shit. But I remember going to that class, and the same day, hey, who are you? Why are you here? And this and that. And there was two dudes there from Idaho, and both of them said, we've never been to a formal class before. We picked up the guns because we want to defend our families and ourselves type of shit. We've been basically watching videos. And then he and I have, been trying to meet every Saturday for 3 hours and then, work on the shit that we've been watching on the videos. But this is the first formal class. And I was like, oh, cool. Good on these fellas to come out here and, sink some money. Obviously, taking away time away from the families, paying for a hotel, the ammo, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Right. So high fives on those fellas. One of those dudes was top shooter of the class. So that whatever they were doing, looking at the internet, and then the methodical way that they were approaching the
They got
training,
focused into the right
yeah,
shit.
man. So you can't tell me it can't be done because I've witnessed it, right? These dudes
Sure.
crushed that fucking. Both of them shot real good, and one guy just ended up having the fastest. I think it was fastest drill in that class, and they were both very competent, both very safe with the guns. You know what I mean? Just really really kick ass dudes. And this is the first class I'd ever been to, so. If you're willing to put in the work, there's a shitload of resources for you to go look at shit right now and get better, man. It's just whether or not you want to. And like I mean, as you mentioned earlier, what's good enough, man? Right? At what point do I say this is good enough for what I'm doing, and the very, 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 very unlikely chance that you would end up having to use that gun at all in America? I mean, it's just this is still a very, very safe country, right? And so to me, not being prepared and not carrying a gun everywhere I go, the consequences of that are too great for me not to do it. Does that make sense? But
Yeah.
I'm realistic when I tell you that I don't expect I'm going to get into a gunfight as soon as we're done with this and I go to the gym. It's just, I mean, that occurring would be a lightning strike. I mean, because it's an unusual event. So because it's such an unusual event, I see sometimes guys will start motivated and they get unmotivated, right? Because why am I doing all this shit? And why am I spending my family's money on a class or ammo or better gear or whatever the hell it is when this is such an infrequent occurrence at all? As long as you ain't doing dumb shit.
That makes sense. I remember Dave Spalding telling me one time that he had a young dude in class, and Dave, if you see this, don't get pissed, but the young dude's wife was pissed because kid was at the class, and he was kind of bitching like, yeah, my old lady's pissed off at me because I'm here. And Dave was like, well, what's going on? He's like, well, money's kind of tight. We got a kid on the way. And Dave fucking flipped out at him and was like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And my words, not his, but like, you got bills at home you're not paying, and you're at a shooting class, and it's not your job that you need to be doing this. He's like, get the fuck out of here. What's wrong with you? And he kind of made that like a little bit of a speech that he talked about with young men. Like, this is like what you do when you can afford to be here. Like, you're not on some assault team where this is this daily skill that you need. Don't be doing it. And guys don't like hearing that though, because it's
Yeah,
sexy to shoot guns.
yeah, absolutely, man.
It's sexy.
Yeah, the social media stuff too. I think has developed some of that. I mean, I know there are guys that come to classes only to get the photo with the instructor and put a post up that they were in this guy's class this weekend, right? The patches and coins. I mean,
Sure.
and that doesn't mean that they ain't taking it serious or they're not trying to shoot better, but there's an underlying element to it, right? And that is the exposure on social media, and they just want everybody to see what they've been in or what class they've been to and whatever. I think some of that also is some of the very very popular drills that are out there. Guys will work only on that thing just so they can post a video of being successful at the thing. Does that make
Mm.
sense? And somehow that validates their overall capability with a gun. And I'll tell you, uh, based on my experience, I have seen. So I have had GMs come to my classes, and not pass any of the standards. right? So that don't mean anything, right? It's just a thing, right? So very, very high end shooters are obviously very competent. But hey,
Let's
man,
hear a couple of your standards real quick, just so we understand what you're talking about.
so yeah, so as an example, it's the test, right? I think it's Vickers that developed that hackathon, turned it into the super test, and I think Lang has super tests on steroids. Everybody got their little version of the test, which is essentially, if you ain't heard of this, is 10 rounds at 10 yards in 10 seconds onto
Mm-hmm.
a B8 repair center. And I believe Larry's original accuracy standard was keep them inside the 8 ring. So if you can put all 10 rounds in the 8 ring in 10 seconds at 10 yards, you're doing pretty damn good.
Yeah,
Then other guys have reduced the time. Larry's initial thing was from a ready position. Guys have added a draw into it, blah, 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 this kind of shit.
yeah. We
Um,
always did that from the draw. Yeah,
yeah. And so I have modified that as well. That's a standard, right? Which is what
on one
now
foot.
25 push-ups first.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's still 10 yards. You're going to draw the pistol and you're going to fire 10 rounds. You only get 7 seconds. But now, because it is on a B8 repair center and I can define an actual score versus just keep them in this area, I want you to shoot a 95 in 7 seconds.
Okay.
And it's not hard. You know what I mean?
No, but that's good, solid mechanics. You
Yeah, you got to be doing a lot of things pretty damn good to achieve that, right?
good draw
Um,
stroke, good grip. Yeah, all that good. Yeah, you
yeah,
can't be bouncing the gun around. But that's
yeah,
bang, 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 bang. Yeah,
yeah.
that's not too fast.
It's not crazy. And I demo it and then call out, here is my draw time. Here was my splits. Here is the total time. It's not crazy fast. In your brain, you might be thinking that's fast as shit, right? But when you actually break the drill down, it's just not that difficult. At any rate, I have had a GM fail that. And it's not, he got the rounds out lightning fucking fast, but he couldn't.
Probably shot it in 4 seconds or something, and just
Yep, couldn't
yeah.
modulate it for the accuracy that I was asking him to deliver. Does that make sense? And
Mm-hmm.
maybe in his world, he's saying this is fucking dumb, right? Combat accuracy, right? If I keep him on the 8 ring, that's in the middle of a fella's chest, and so why am I training to shoot slower to a higher level? Because I'm asking you to, man. It's
Because
just
that's the
that, right?
construct of the drill, dipshit.
Yeah, it's just that. It's just the thing. So that is something, right? So the high end dudes, I mean, sometimes they have struggled in the class, and that doesn't mean they suck at shooting. And this may just be a different type of shooting than what they've been practicing or trying to get better at. And
Mm-hmm.
so, when I go to training, I want to try to. Hopefully, I'm going to learn something new. Right, that would be a thing I would like to figure out, and that ain't always necessarily on the shooting side of the house. When I attend training or when I co-teach with other guys that are instructors, the thing I learn new may be the way they said something, the instructing side of the house, not necessarily the shooting side of the house. Does that make sense? And so, want to learn
Mm-hmm.
something new. I'm hoping that I get reminded of something that I knew was important, but I got complacent on or forgot about it. Does that make sense? So,
That happens a lot.
yeah, I mean, a lot of my class was built around the B8 Repair Center. We still shoot silhouettes in there, different things. But if you asked people, they would tell you that Bill shoots B8s. I shoot everything, but there's a lot of, because I want to define the accuracy piece. Does that make
Sure.
sense? Um,
Yeah, it's repeatable. They can buy them, download them. Yeah.
yeah, all that stuff, right? And it's, like as you said, it's just simple, right? Everybody knows what that target is too. So I mean, me and you could be working on drills together halfway across the country from each other and go, just shoot the repair center, dude. And then I have
Mm-hmm.
an idea of what the accuracy center is. Um, so with that, recently I have been, I think I'm shooting, different thing, whatever the fuck it is, but training with a cat that is all about the speed life. Um, Made me think I have not really been pushing the speed envelope like I used to. So I've been shooting a shitload of USPSA targets lately, trying to get that back. Does that make sense? And so
Yeah.
it reminded me of something that I know is important, but I haven't been focusing on, and probably because the job of teaching this shit requires me to do certain things, right? I want to put on a good, clean demo so you can see what I'm doing. Does that make sense? And if it's on a B8, then obviously I need to maintain proficiency on that target.
I think
So
what
anyway,
I just heard is that you don't want to look like an asshole in class that misses.
kind of, right? And it's funny because I don't really give a shit if I miss, which is sometimes guys are a little bit, I guess, I don't know. It's just funny. But anyway, so reminded of something else, and then the final thing, man, is I want to have fun while I'm doing this. It shouldn't be something where you're just degrading me the entire time and making me feel like an asshole. Does that make sense? It should
Sure.
be an environment where I feel like even my small successes, which are horrendously terrible to a guy of your skill, I want to see that instructor actually excited about that shit. Does that make sense? Because that's a big achievement for me in your class, man. right? On the grand scale of good shooters across America, I still suck. But recognize that I just did this and I ain't never done it before, man. That's a huge fucking thing, right?
Cool. Yeah,
And
yeah.
so I want to see instructors that are getting excited about shit, man. And I don't really give a fuck what it is. You know what I mean? I want him to be as excited that I shot a $half-dollar bill drill in 2 seconds at 100 yards, and then be as excited that a guy kept him all on the entire sheet of paper in 14 seconds at 2 yards because he couldn't do that before he showed up. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah, yeah.
And so I think all those things are important, man. And I think I really, really, really enjoy watching guys hit those small achievements in class, man. I mean, that is awesome. You know what I mean? It's just awesome. Then the guys will go, well, then why are the standards so difficult? Because I also don't want it to be a cakewalk, right? I don't want you to get a blue ribbon for every single because you showed up. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right, right, right. Yay, you loaded your gun. Everybody gets a
Yeah,
prize.
yeah, hooray, right? And then, like I tell all dudes, I mean, me and you. So if you and I were live close together, hey man, you want to go shoot this weekend? Sure, let's go shoot. And you're going, hey, I got this new penis drill I developed, right? Penis target type
Mhm.
of thing. You want to shoot it? Yeah, yeah, sure. What is it, right? So here's the parameters of this thing. Like I said, in my head, I'm going to go, okay, well, can I do this or not yet based on what you're giving me? And then almost always my first thing is I'm going to shoot this as accurately as I can, as fast as I can. And that there's a difference in there. Does that make sense? And so I'm just going to pound one out as fast as I can know that I know I can make those hits. And then I'm going to say, what's that time? And you're like, oh, you're 4 seconds slow. Okay, where can I step on the gas now? Does that make sense? Let me try it again. Let me try it
Mhm.
again. Even through the course of that 2 or 3 hour shooting session of me and you banging away on this new drill, I may not be successful at it. Does that make sense? Because it's fucking new
Mhm.
to me, man. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And so I have no doubt that if I want to or if I want to pass your drill, I can do it. I just might need more time, right? Which is the GM I was talking about. It's not that he can't do it. Of course he can do it, right? I mean, the guy has all of the skill and ability to pass that simple fucking drill. It's just he hasn't been training that piece. And so my guess is if I gave him more than 4 opportunities in the class to do it, right, over the course of a 2 day class, that he would be able to pass the damn thing. But this is still a new drill to him. So working on the timing piece still needs to get managed, and he needs to understand what he can and cannot get away with, just like on a
Hmm.
speed drill. You know what I mean? And so I think
What
there's
are
some of
some?
that shit too.
This is not a conversation that we normally have on this podcast, but I like what we're talking about. Like, what are some basic standards you think a copper or everyday carried civilian should be able to achieve? If somebody straps a gun on themselves and goes in the world every day, like, should they be able to hit a note card at 5 yards? Should they be able to do a front barrel roll and pop up behind a trash can and fire two to the air and then one to a gut sack? Like what's the like a baseline set of skills?
So the answer is that I don't know what that is, right? Because
Come
no
on,
matter
you got to have something.
I mean, there's the so
Like,
well, here's a thing, right? And so okay, and I'll tell. So I'm going to ask you just like this is a class. Are you with me here? It's like, all right, man. So here is a B8 repair center, the 8 inch ring and in. That is a full 8 inch circle. I'm going to have you shoot this at 7 yards. All right. So you're going to from the draw, fire one shot. You're going to shoot that thing. What is a good draw time?
how many? What was that? One run?
One run, just
I
one
was
draw and
I was
fire one
thinking
round.
about the
Yes.
dimensions of that target, and I
8 inch
got
circle.
distracted. I've already failed.
Yep, yep. It's big 8 inch circle. Distance is 7 yards. You're going to start with the gun in the holster. You can't be touching it, right? And none of that shit. I'm going to hit this shot timer beep, and then when you hear that some gun, you're going to pull the gun out, fire one shot, and hit that 8 inch circle. What would be a good time?
For me, from concealment, I would be able to do that in 1.5 all day long, and
Okay,
I'd be
1.5 all
super
day
happy
long,
with
right?
that.
So that's kind of an industry standard thing. That's
Yeah,
typical,
one
you'll hear.
1.5, I'd be super happy with that.
So,
Now,
this
go
this
ahead.
sidebar, right? And so uh, obviously I'm talking to the whole class, not just a guy, right? So dudes will start spitting numbers out at
Right,
me.
right, right.
And
One
it's always
second.
it's interesting to me, right? Particularly so I'll hear shit like, oh, whew, 5 seconds. I'm like, oh, no shit, right? Okay, type of thing. 5 seconds, all right. So maybe there's that. And then I'll hear another motherfucker holler
Maybe
out
there's
point
that.
five, right? And I'm like, point
Sure.
five. And he's like, yeah, fuck yeah, right? It should be point. And I'm like,
Bob
oh,
London.
And you running that triple retention cop holster? Yeah, 0.5. I'm like, okay, so I think it's very rare that I am wrong. The 5 second guy has no fucking idea how fast he can actually move, right? Time is a weird thing to
Right.
him, right? He has
Right.
no
Right.
fucking
Right.
clue.
He's the
Uh,
guy that has sex for 2 hours in his head.
right, right. The 0.5 guy also has no idea about time, right? He has no fucking clue what he's talking about, for shit's sake, right? And so it's just an interesting thing sometimes that we're possible. But by the end of the class discussion and all these numbers getting fired around and me kind of guiding them, 1.5 is what usually we all agree upon. Does that make sense?
Sure.
So I'm like, okay, cool. But the 1.5 is all of the time. That's your new all of that. Doesn't mean you can't miss once in a while, right? But I'm saying consistently it's going to
Mm-hmm.
be 1.5. So it is currently a 72-degree day, cotton ball clouds. Everybody in this class, for example, is carrying outside the waistband, right? Some type of super duper tactical man holster or some shit. And so let's see if we can achieve that goal. So we do it. Cool. Now in December, when you're wearing your puffy coat and your fucking long johns and gloves on and this and that, can you still achieve a 1.5? If it is now you're on your time off, right? If it's a cop class, you ain't wearing your cop belt, you're carrying appendix or 4 o'clock outside, whatever how the hell you carry your pistol, it's still 1.5. Does that make sense? If you're
Yeah.
running a weapon mounted light, activating the light is still 1.5, which means then today on a 72-degree day, I probably need to be in the 110, 120 range to
Yeah. Yeah.
give me that additional time when things ain't going perfect. Does that make sense? And then the
Mm-hmm.
final part of this which is the thing that you go to a class and the shot timer is meant to give us some information. Shooter ready, stand by, beep, and you are primed for it. Does that make sense? Now I still need you to have a 1.5 draw when you're in the vegetable aisle and knocking on a cantaloupe, and all of a sudden a dude pulls a gun on you. Does that make sense? Because reaction time now is going to add time. And so the 1 second draw for that standard isn't because I'm trying to turn you into a USPSA world champion. I'm trying to give you a half a second of flex in there to account for all those unusual things that may come up on the defensive engagement. Because you won't get the bad guy saying, "Hey, fella with the cantaloupe, stand by." You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And I ain't shitting on USPA. And sometimes they're, well, you talking about this crazy. And I'm not talking. I'm saying be as fast as you fucking can because you know time is going to get added when you add throwing these other variables. And I demonstrate that in class, right? Do just working on hand speed, right? And you'll see guns get bound up in holsters because they're not used to going fast. They're missing retention if they're running a retention rig. They miss shirt sweeps if they're carrying an appendix inside the waistband. All these things start to happen when you start going real fast. And so to alleviate some of this shit, we do a couple of runs just into the berm, right? Just shoot the berm, man, as fast as you fucking can type of shit. Gun's got to be roughly up in the area where you be picking up a sight picture. And we're going to time those. So that comes in at this time. Now I'm going to add in the adding piece. And it, of course, adds time, right? Because your brain has to go, that's good enough, go ahead and send it. Yeah, copy that, it's on the way type of shit. And then we throw it into a larger drill where more than one round is fired. And typically you're going to add time to that. Does that make sense? And then I do a thing where, okay, Mickey's been shooting real good. When he hears the beep, he can fire whenever he wants to. And in the middle of that sentence, I beep it, right? And as soon as he hears the beep, he can fire whenever he wants to, beep. And so when he's ready, he's going to go ahead and fire it. And you're just standing there. And then you do the string. I'm like, I just beeped it. Did you not hear the beep? Yeah, I heard it. Well, that was the beep. So get to shooting.
Clock's
I'm
still
like,
ticking, motherfucker.
yeah. And so they pull it out and shoot, right? And it's obviously a very egregious example of that shit, right? But there's a chunk of it. So trying to define, well, this is good enough. I don't know what good enough is, man. You know what I
No,
mean?
I didn't say good enough. I said a baseline, like a
Okay. Yeah.
minimum standard.
Yeah. And so is a 1.5 draw good enough, or baseline, or however the hell you want to say it, right? Without having the internet explode and think me and you are lackadaisical, complacent dickheads that don't give a shit about getting
This
better.
is
That
you.
that's
I'm going to disagree with whatever you say. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. No, but I mean, there's got to be some minimum. Okay, for example, Illinois concealed carry. If somebody takes the Illinois concealed carry while we've got the huge B-27, that scoring
yep.
zone that's like, I don't know, 25 inches by like 16 inches, 30 rounds from 5, 7, and 10. It's 10 rounds, 10 rounds, 10 rounds from 5, 7, and 10 yards. If they're anywhere in that big scoring ring, it's a hit. right?
Yep.
So there's zero time constraints. You can put the gun down, you can have a cup of coffee, you can fucking, take a nap and come back to it. And
That
I
is
think
not good enough.
you got to get a 70% to pass. So you can miss a bunch too, right? So
That's
like
yep.
that's what the state police and my state of Illinois says is a minimum qualification of proficiency with a pistol to be able to be issued a concealed carry license. So like to me, it's disgusting.
It's
But
horrible. It's
yeah,
horrible. But think about the backlash if they made it more stringent, right?
sure.
An actual standard that most people are looking at go that okay, that's pretty good, man. That's pretty good shooting right there. Very few people then would be putting in the time to be able to pass it. And now you're fucking with my constitutional rights to carry a firearm for self-defense. Does that make sense?
100% agree.
And so
Yeah.
of course they have to make it be a and this then dovetails into exactly what we were talking about with the cops. So now I don't know any better, right? What something happens in my life that makes me go, I really need a fucking gun. Does that make sense? Never gave a fuck about guns one way or the other before. I wasn't on one in one camp or the other. But whatever this incident is, maybe not directly me to a family member, some shit. But I'm like, man, I am becoming keenly aware that the government will not protect me. I need to handle that job by myself. You with me? So
I'm
I go to
with
the
you.
gun store. What should I buy? I have no fucking clue. And the dude at the gun counter recommends whatever, right? And we'll say for say he recommends the tried and true Glock 17, right? So I buy one of them sons of bitches. And then I go to my first gun class where they talk about concealed weapon shit and the legal aspects and to load and unloading, safe range practices and basic bullshit. And then I practice a little bit because I know I got this state test coming up, right, to allow me to carry concealed in your state with the parameters you just put forward. So I practice a little bit, and then I'll be goddamn. I go take it and I pass. Can you see how some people would look at that and go, "I am ready.
Sure.
I'm
Yeah.
ready." Right? I have passed the minimum standard, and the same thing goes on the cop side of the house. A thing, and I think it's psychological, is if you look at most police qualification courses, they are a minimum standard, right? So it's usually it's a lowest common denominator thing. And so within that, for example, you have to, whether on the shot timer, turning target, whatever the hell the stimulus is, you must draw your pistol and you're going to fire 6 rounds into the high center chest of this full ass B-27 giant man sized target. Excuse me. You're going to fire, what did I say, 7 rounds? Right. So you're
Yeah,
going to fire,
sure.
draw and fire 7 rounds to the high chest. You have 8 seconds to accomplish that task. So dudes do that, right? And I mean, that's not fast shooting by anybody's stretch. And so what I end up seeing with a lot of cops that come to class, and for people that, like you described, that maybe the only level of training they've been to, their draws are fucking crazy slow. And it isn't because they can't go faster, it's because they've always had the time to go that slow. Does that make sense? And so the thing I bring up in the law enforcement instructor classes is it possible that if that were a stage in your qual course, that guy's first shot from the draw takes him 4 seconds, but once the gun is out, he can run the gun and get those 7 rounds out in the 8 seconds total. Does that make sense? But is it and score enough points to meet the 71 in the gun thing? Does that make sense? You've qualified, fella. So is it possible then that 4 second draw might get him killed in the streets? It's just too fucking slow. You with me here? And they
Mm-hmm.
concede. Yeah, that's. But we're not isolating it. We're just saying, hey, you passed the qual, good on you, fella. But we never actually go back and look at the draw time is horrendously slow. It's also possible that you get a dude who's got some good fast switch shit. He draws, fires that first shot in 1 second flat. Right? Be unusual, but possible. But he can't control the gun, right? His grip sucks ass and he's just not doing it. So, in order for him to hit the target, he now has to run 1 second splits in that gigantic accuracy standard at a very short range. Is it possible that his inability to control the gun and produce accurate hits at a fairly rigorous clip would also get him killed in the streets? Because getting shot don't mean dead. Does that make sense? So your bad guy, he got shot with bullet number one real damn fast, but he's still on his feet and fighting. And if they concede, yeah, the answer is yes, that could also happen. And if you ain't isolating those two skills, then how the fuck do you know what the deficiency is for each of those shooters? And so the qual course is only giving me a baseline of information, but it doesn't tell me what that person specifically needs to work on. And a thing again, I started out mainly doing cop-based classes, right? And so, and then just ended up opening some to civilians and shit. But it's a frustrating thing within law enforcement, and even with the course you're talking about, where we're saying, "Hey, man, you're good enough," and dudes are believing it because
Mm-hmm.
we're the ones that told them. For fuck's sake, does that make sense? And that should not be the case. On my team, I was never able to implement this, but to me, this made sense. So, hey, Mick, congratulations! You're selected. You're on the team now, and you're in your probationary year, right? The first year where you're going to go to all your baseline training, and we're trying to teach you how we do CQB and all of the bullshit that goes along with being a good SWAT man, right? So you're doing all this bullshit. So that year is a free year. At the end of the year, you should be passing our qualification courses with your pistol and rifle. They are more stringent than what you've had to do as a patrol officer. So I need to give you time, right, to train and get better to versus just spring this on you one day and go, if you can't pass, you're off the team. Does that make sense? I got to get you to a point. So your 0 year is just getting you up to speed, right? So now we'll say for the sake of this, at the 12th month is when you finally pass the pistol and rifle qualifications. You're good to go. So you're good. Everything else is looking solid. You're off probation. Now you're on the team between year 1 and 5, right? That 0 year don't count. It's just a train up year. We don't expect you to do shit. And you ain't. I mean, if you're deploying, it's in a very less important role. Does that make sense? So you might drive a Bearcat, or you might be on perimeter with other senior guys or shit like that. But very unusual that you would go in the house. Does that make sense? So year 1 to 5, this is your standard. This is what you must maintain. At the 5th year, we have been providing training to you. We've been giving you paid time and resources, free bullets, ranges, and everything else to get better at this. So at the end of the 5 year period, should I not expect more from you as a shooter? Yeah.
Yeah.
As a carpenter, would you expect me to be more proficient after 5 years of nailing shit together? Or
Yeah.
would if I'm
Sure.
still making unsquare houses, would you be like, motherfucker, you got to go, right?
Right. Right.
And
Right.
so between year 5 and 10, here is your new standard, and that includes physical fitness, all of the gun shit, and I should be seeing and documenting you're making less mistakes in CQB. Everybody makes mistakes. Does that make sense? Everybody misses. Everybody flubs a draw. Everybody fucks a reload up. So I'm accounting for that. I'm saying consistently, I should see this higher level performance from you, right? At the 10-year mark, I want to bump that up again. So now your new fucking standards are these things. 10 to 15 years, and then 15 to 20, so forth and so on. Because if we believe that selection is a never ending process, and you should be showing me that you're responding to training, then I should be testing you at a higher level once I provide you with more time and resources to get better. And I could never implement it because then you start, oh, what about, this guy's been around a long time and he got all that experience. And my response has always been, that's fucking bullshit. An average SWAT call out is Groundhog Day. It's the same shit over and over again. Does that make sense? There's nothing new about this. So your experience while you've been here for a long time, the day-to-day warrant service shit, barricade management bullshit, it's the same fucking thing, just in a different location with a different dude. So I'm not losing. When you get a couple hundred missions under your belt or jobs under your belt as a SWAT guy, your experience, man, it's the same fucking thing from this point forward, absent those unusual ones where crazy shit goes on or whatever the fuck it is. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So I think in the same vein, within the state, it'd be okay. Here's your initial thing. This giant B-27, keep them on there. You 70%, blah blah blah. Cool, cool, cool. You now have you are allowed to carry a concealed weapon. You with me? However, in this state, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, whatever, when you come back to renew your CCW, you should be shooting at this level. And if you can't, then we're going to revoke your fucking CCW because you're not showing that you're getting better. This was the baseline. But again, that would create for sure would create
Yeah, a little
issues.
different with a constitutional right versus a
Exactly.
job. But I get your point.
And that it was simply a point. Does that make sense? But there's no
Yeah.
check measure for that to make things happen. And it's unfortunate, man, because I think if we're telling people this is good enough and or here's a good baseline, and now you're ready to go out in the community and sling some bullets, well then why the fuck is anybody surprised that when we add in the stress of a no shit lethal force encounter that we're getting misses and shit? You know what I mean? It
The
doesn't make
cultural problem.
yeah, it's an everything problem, right? And so the videos of cops shooting poorly and doing dumb shit. I mean, it makes me fucking sad because the reality is the organization has failed them. You know what I mean? And absent if we not doing the work, of course. I mean, you go interview Blowers who shot like a dickhead and shot everybody in the store except the bad guy and this and that. if you go and interview me and I tell you, well, the agency lets me shoot for free every single day. I can go on my days off and shoot. I can shoot on my time on as well, right? There's a period of time once a week where I can go shoot. They got good professional instructors, blah, blah, blah. And all these things were available, and I still shot like an asshole. Well, then I'm just a dickhead. Does that make sense? Then it's all
Mm-hmm.
on me. However, if you interview me and say, we haven't done any live fire in 5 years, and the last time it was a qualification course that was 20 rounds because the boss won't give, we don't have any money for ammo, we don't have a range, we don't have this, blah, blah, blah. Now, some people be like, well, then that's on you, man. I agree, except the agency is also telling me I'm good enough. And if I don't have any background to dispute that, then I am going to believe what I'm being told. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's kind of a silly argument because then we would just assume that every human has the ability to go out and parse information and find this kind of body of knowledge that we've been talking about and then compare themselves to that body of knowledge and then develop desire and initiative to, that's just not humanity. That's a
Agreed.
tiny sliver of people.
Yep.
That's the fucking guy at the gym that's all ripped, and you're like, damn, I want to look like him. And that
Yep.
guy's like, you can just get out of bed at 4 in the morning and
Do
eat
it.
a bunch of chicken breasts and show up with me. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, yeah.
I have
It's
a buddy of mine. I think it's now 6 officer involved shootings, maybe 5. I don't remember exactly. Um, but he is not good with a gun, man. He's not good with a gun. He's an older guy, been around for a long time, but he can still bench press a bus, and he's a black belt in fucking jujitsu. And I mean, as he's moving along in these OIS, I remember saying, "Hey, dude, we need to get you up to the range, man. We need to get you better. You are a dude that is attracting these encounters.
yeah,
Let's get
yeah.
let's get you better." And his response, and some guys are going to roll their eyes and shake their head at this, but he said, I have all W's so far in the gunfights, right? So that's a thing. My track record is all W's.
That's a pretty big body of evidence too, and in
To
that
some now, but here's the thing: is that he recognizes that he is not very good with a gun. Does that make sense?
sure.
He goes, "Okay, I've had whatever," and you don't quote me. I don't remember. It's 5. I've been in 5, shootouts, whatever the hell, and won every one of them. But over the course of my career, I have been in 10,000 fisticuffs. And the thing that matters most to me is winning the fist fight, right? Because that's what's occurring with more frequency. So I'm going to spend time in the gym to be as strong as I can be. And I'm going to spend time on the mat so I can be as formidable as I can be for the higher frequency event in my job, which is the fisticuff in the ditch. Like, you can be both, right?
Yeah.
You can be both. But again, he relates back to time and resources. I got kids, I got a wife, I got other hobbies I like to do, I got these things, you know what I mean? And so if I have to dedicate more to that one thing, which is a very, very low frequency event, even for him, right? Even though he's had a bunch of them, that doesn't make sense in my analytical brain compared to the number of times I've had to go hands-on with folks. So I am going to get as good as I can with this shit, and I'm going to be pretty okay with the other thing. And I don't, again, not agreeing with that, but I'm just trying to plant the
No,
seed in dude's head, right? What is the baseline type of thing?
you keep using the word frequency. That brings up Gordon Graham. You ever heard him do the speech on frequency and risk? And
Yep.
that's the issue. There is not that you can't be seriously injured or killed in a fist fight or have your gun taken from you or something like that, but the risk of being shot of a negative outcome is pretty fucking high.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
And so that's my thought, right? I mean, like I said, when I first got hired, I mean, I was not a pistol shooter growing up. Even my time in the army, I was all rifle. It wasn't anything to do with handgun type of thing. Well, this is now the new thing, right? I'm going to be carrying this thing at a minimum 40 hours a week, and then pretty quickly you figure out I'm going to be running into people that I just arrested last week in the grocery store, and they may not be real keen on me. Does that make sense? And so even on my off duty time, the necessity to carry a gun has become more and more relevant at this point in my life. And my thought process pretty early on was there are very few things that I cannot fix after the fact, right? If I write a shitty police report, then I can typically do an addendum and try to clean up either the language that wasn't clear or the procedure that I was following, whatever, and still get that shit okay. Does that make sense? Not lying, but it's just I didn't fully articulate this part. Here's the addendum to the original report to help clarify. Does that make sense? Um, Evidence-based shit. I can fuck up evidence collection until the cows come home, and it's still possible I'll get that evidence admitted into court because there was no malice involved. I wasn't trying to hide the weenie or do anything, untoward. I just didn't do it right. But the evidence is still the evidence, man. Right? The fact that I put it in a brown paper bag instead of a plastic sack shouldn't fucking matter. The evidence still stands. Does that make sense? So possibly get that into court. I can suck at fist fighting because I can get punched a lot and still live. You with me here? Now,
Mhm.
again, just an example, right? Just having a conversation. If I suck at shooting, the consequence of that is extreme, right? I will end up dead potentially as a result because it's the one thing I can't fix. If I don't have the gun skills at the exact moment I need them for the adversary that's being presented to me, then that can be a very, very bad outcome, and there's no fixing that after the fact. Does that make sense? And so for
Yeah,
me,
or you could shoot the wrong person too.
a lot of bad stuff
Yeah.
could happen, right? And
Yeah.
so unlike him, the opposite was true of me. I wanted to be extremely proficient at the guns, but if me and him went on the match together, he'd bend me into a pretzel shape. We're equally physically fit. Does that make sense? We both took the physical fitness piece serious. So I don't think there's a big disparity in strength or anything else. It's just the fact that he has better trained it than me.
Sure,
And so he would win on the mats. No different than Mike Tyson would beat the shit out of me in the ring. Does that make sense?
sure,
Uh,
sure.
that type of thing. For
I
me,
think
the
that kind of stuff's a cop out. I think a guy like that, and I'm not busting his nuts, would spend like 2 hours a month and totally, even if it was just like four 30-minute range sessions. Let's just work on a draw stroke. Let's just work on some freaking trigger work. Let's just work on some splits.
me and you are saying the same thing here, right? And I hope
Yeah,
I didn't leave you with the impression that I agree
not at
with his
all.
mindset.
No, no, no. I'm not disagreeing. I'm making a point to the audience listening that it's not like you need to go do. I've got a friend, his name's Eric Camps. He literally has blown the breech face out of Glocks from dry fire. He's a national level GM, blown the breech face out where the striker has hit the breech face so many times. I don't know if you've done that. I've never done that, and just blown the fucking breech face out from dry fire. Like that's what he did for years. He has targets arrays set up in his basement. Now he's married, but no girlfriends for years, and that's what he did. He just dry fired ad nauseum and broke guns doing it. Um, you don't need to do that to be able to like
I
be
agree.
pretty proficient.
I agree. I also don't think you need to be a black belt in jujitsu,
No, no.
right?
I
I
mean,
mean, so I guess really what we're ending up here is there's just got to be some balance with shit, right? I want to be, and don't make no mistake, the guy I'm talking about, it's not like he's putting magazines in the gun backward or, dropping his pistol on the draw. He's not horrible with a gun by any stretch of the imagination, but he could be a much, much better shooter than what he currently is. You follow
so
me
I
here?
guess
So
therein lies my earlier question. What's that look like? What would happen? What would happen for you to be out with your buddy and be like, man, you know what? You're pretty fucking good now. Like, is it you just watching a bunch of random movements and gun handling skills and targets being shot? Or is there something that could happen or some things, some metrics, some standards, some baseline sets of skills that you'd be like, okay, that's acceptable. I won't break his nuts anymore for not being a great pistolero.
See, and I don't know if you can answer. I think a 1.5 second draw under an 8-inch circle it would be a good if you could do that consistently and in all conditions. That's a pretty good measuring
Okay.
stick of you. You're showing me something. Does that make sense?
I like
Um,
that.
yeah, I mean it's a thing. I think I would want. I think if you can shoot a bill drill sub 3.5 consistently, I think that it would be me going. That's pretty damn good shooting.
So a
Um,
real bill drill is USPSA A zone 7 yards, just for
yep.
the listeners, not for
Yep.
you.
Yep.
Okay.
3.5 seconds, right from the draw, however the hell you actually carry the thing, that type of thing. Um, I think that would be a good one. Something, and I don't necessarily have a drill off the top of my head. I think, well, a thing potentially like a DeFore's initial hat drill, right, which was it's 10 rounds in 20 seconds at 25 yards into a BA repair center, or actually into a BA, so you get the 7 ring and all that shit. And he wants you to score a 90.
That's a long time.
It's a long time, right? But it's also
Mhm.
a fairly long distance with a handgun now, right? With
Yeah.
25 yards. So if you can score a 90 or better in less than 20, and he's modified that now, if you got a red dot, he only gives you 15 seconds. So if you can shoot a 90 or better in 15 seconds with a red dot, 20 seconds with iron sights, that's 25. That's probably a good check measure of marksmanship.
I like
Um,
that.
Probably slowing you down a little bit too, right? So there's some you're modulating the cadence of fire based on the distance and the accuracy standard. Um, some of that shit,
I
man.
like that. I
I
think
mean,
those are some. I think those are some good definable metrics. I use printer paper a lot because I tell people if I want them to be able to stay on a piece of printer paper 25 yards and in, which I think is just zero time constraint. And when they can do that, fold the paper in half, and then be able to stay on that 25 yards and in, just from like a raw accuracy standpoint
yeah,
because the B8's perfect. I use them all the time, but not everybody has them. So like everybody's got a sheet of printer paper. Like what's that? Half of that 8.5 by 11 is 11 by 4. Like that's pretty decent if you can stay in that. I like Dave Spalding used to do that. I forgot what SF unit it was, but he was training with some dudes. He does that 2 by 2 by 2 drill, 2 rounds into a post-it note at 20 feet. So basically 7 yards. I tried that one time in class and I was well inside the par time training with him years ago and I missed a shot and it irritated the fuck out of me. So I took a notebook and I went to the range with it took about a week. And I tell this story all the time to students, kind of what we were talking about to start. And I sat down, I was like, okay, first shot's got to be, 1.5, which is plenty of time, and then I got a whole half a second to make the follow-up shot. And I'd sit and I'd do like 10 tries, and I'd write down the first shot time, second shot time, and then I'd write whether I completed or failed or where I missed. And then for a while, it was too many misses. So I worked on just tightening it up because I was shooting too fast. Anyway, after about a week, I was doing it 4 or 5 rounds in under 2 seconds. I think my consistent time was like between 1.8 and 1.9 for 4 shots. And but it was such a parlor trick where I'm like on this indoor range and I've got like the spots my feet are and the cardboard's just so and the light over my head is just so. So I started fucking around. If I take a step to the right and the lighting's a little different on my Ameriglows, yeah, I had to like reboot and try it again. Or if I took a step back or a step forward. And so those things become it really helped me clean up a bunch of movement stuff. But I thought, man, okay, I just gave myself tendonitis for 6 months again. Like this is fucking great because I probably drew the gun 4,000 times in a week, doing that, whipping it out as fast as you could. But like chasing those things, sometimes it becomes fruitless. I was like, all right, I've now injured myself. Literally, it was probably 6 months of some bullshit tendonitis from throwing the gun out that many times. But anyway, so I think those are some fine standards. What are some things? I know we're getting kind of long winded here, and you got shit to do. What are some things that you've seen pop up in the training world that you don't agree with or don't like?
So my answer is nothing. And I mean that sincerely. And the reason I'm saying that is, you mentioned this earlier, man, is I think most dudes that are national trainers and well-known local, regional type trainer guys, they are teaching. My experience is most of them are teaching from the heart. Um, they believe what it is that they're teaching. I think that they are basing it on their own experience in training, and if they have some real world experience with some stuff, that they're not just their experience being trained by others, but also their personal training time. Here's something I've discovered, that type of thing. Probably like, hey, that drill you were just explaining, right? So along the way, I mean, you got tendonitis, but did you also learn some shit with that much effort toward that drill? Does that make sense? And so
Yeah,
they'll
yeah.
be thinking about that and how can I shorten that learning curve, come up with a drill or a thing or whatever the hell it is on the range to help shorten the learning curve and or implant that in a dude's head so he'll continue to work on his own. So I think everybody is honestly trying the best they can to give you the best package they can in the short time frame that they can. Um, One of the things for so a thing that has always kind of felt and I don't mean this to sound shitty, so don't take this. It's just a personal opinion. Other people have different thoughts on this thing. I don't like pistol one, pistol two, pistol at nighttime, pistol with no pants on, pistol when underwater. Yeah, it's just
I want
fucking
to do
pistol.
pistol with no pants on.
Right? I mean, it's pistol shooting, and so what I am trying to do, and whether I'm successful or not remains to be seen. I'm just going to try to give you as much information as I can in a class, and then you can apply that to shooting it with no pants on, for fuck's sake, right? I mean,
Not to
if that
suck your dick, but that's the exact same way I do it. People say to me all the time, "Why don't you do different levels?" I go, "Because we're going to do the same shit. We're going to draw the gun, shoot the targets. We've got timers out and stuff. So if you did it in 3 seconds this time, try to do it in 2.5 the next time, or
exactly
whatever."
right,
That's
right,
on. You want me to discharge you to fucking come back and do the same shit?
which and that's the I guess that's the thing in my head has always been like, I got to pay you another fucking 500-600 bucks for the magic sauce and pistol too. Well, I mean, what the fuck? And then the times that I've done those, it hasn't. The content has been very fucking similar, if not exactly the same, but they just changed the fucking standards on me. Does that make sense? It's just now you got to be able to do it in this time or this accuracy standard. And so a thing in class where we're doing a thing, excuse me, we're doing a thing, right? And so the entire class, right? If this is the first time they're shooting this drill, I would say your initial accuracy standard is this. The part time is going to stay consistent for everybody, right? So here's what you got. So here we go. Let's shoot the thing. So everybody shoots it. We go down and score them, check them out, whatever the fuck it is, and I'll say who was able to maintain the accuracy standard and get that part time. Hands will go up. What was your score? Well, I scored a 90 as an example. Okay, we're going to reshoot it again. Now your score is a 95. Otherwise, you don't pass. Does that make sense? Because you've already demonstrated you can do the initial thing. And then you guys, I didn't make I got the points, but I was over time. Okay, so now you're going to try to maintain the 90, and I just want you to shave 1 second off of your time for this next run. Does that make sense? And so within the class, what's that?
There you go. Voice got quiet for a second.
All right. So within the class and within just a couple of runs of a drill, I can be making I can challenge everybody in the group. I don't give a fuck who you are. You know what I mean? Your new accuracy standard is this, or your new part time is this. But this guy over here, he gets way more time and a much bigger target because that's currently where he's fucking sitting. So for him, this is an extremely difficult fucking drill to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And so there's no
Mm-hmm.
need to break it out into pistol 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, low light pistol, this, that, the other thing. I mean, all that can be managed pretty much in a single fucking pistol class, and then it's up to you to go do the shit with it. I think the other thing I'm trying to do, man, is some of this right time and resources. I got a lot of time to dry fire, so I wake up between 6 and 6:30 every fucking morning. I don't know why I don't set an alarm clock. It's just when I get the fuck up. My wife tends to sleep in a little bit later. So every morning I'll drink my coffee, come back here, and I just spend some time dry firing right here in my office. You know what I mean? And it's not egregious. It's nothing fucking nutty. You're not like a 3 hour grind session where I'm sweaty at the end of the fucking thing, but I'm just touching my guns a little bit. And so I'm also in the class showing, okay, so here's what you're capable of today. Here's how you leverage that towards your dry fire, right? So if your objective is to have a 1.5 draw into an 8-inch circle at this distance, then let's start working on that in dry fire. And here's how you use a shot timer to help you get to that point. Don't put on 1.5 and just be mad that you're missing the beep every time. For fuck's sake, man, let's see if you can get it done at 1.9 consistently and keep track of shit. And if you can, once you can, then drop it to 1.8, drop it to 1.7, and you have to recognize
These things are cheap.
I mean, fuck's sake, no one goes to the gym and goes, I guess I'll lift those weights over there for a little while. You just don't do that. You know what I mean? You typically,
Idiots.
well, yeah, morons do it, right? And that's why
Yeah.
they don't get stronger or whatever the hell they're trying to achieve there type of thing. Um, and then there's a possibility too, man. Talk about I'm changing up manual arms on the rifle right now with this, ambi fucking bolt release type of shit. I think sometimes people they shoot a little bit, they get better than most people, and then what they're doing must be best because they're better than a lot of their friends. Does that make sense? And so if you show them a new thing, they're hesitant to change what they're doing, even though you may have demonstrated to them that it's more efficient, better, whatever the fuck it is. But now they have to shit can the effort they put into getting this good with that thing, which means they're going to be worse for a little while they ingrain the new thing, and then they have to put the work in to get beyond where they were currently sitting. And that all that shit is just fucking work, man. And so, like I said, A way versus the way. I'm going to show you a bunch of different ways. I'm going to illustrate to you examples of very, very high end shooters that all do things very, very differently. right, with specificity in some cases, and yet they're all world or national fucking champions. So who the fuck is right? The answer is
Mm-hmm.
they're all right because they had the discipline to fuck around with different ways to do the thing and figure out which way is working best for them. You with me on that?
I am. I kind of phrase that as there are some principles probably being withheld, not maybe a specific technique. For example, I'm not gripping the gun just like Rob Latham, but I am achieving some principles of control that anybody that shoots at a high level would. That friend Eric I told you about holds the pistol in very much a less than standard way. And so I show people all the time. I go, look how I'm holding the gun. Would you hold the gun this way? Like his left hand's kind of low, his thumbs aren't up high, and all that shit. And they're like, no, that sucks. And I go, okay, why does it suck? And they tell me, well, because he's got to get this hand up higher. He's got, cam action. He's got, and I go, okay, well, I show a video of the guy doing it. And then they realize that he shoots for Team USA for IPSC and that he travels all over the planet and that he's a grandmaster and this is the guy that blows the breech faces out of the Glocks. And they're like, well, how? And I go, because he's controlling the gun. He's stopping the freaking grip from coming up and his wrists are locked out. And like, but do you need to emulate that? He'd probably tell you not to. He
Right.
taught himself incorrectly, but he made it work. But there's a principle being withheld or being held, not so much a mimicked technique. And yeah, I think we maybe get wrapped around some shit like that. I've
Sure.
seen somebody recently using real guns, unloaded, but real guns doing like force on force shit, pointing real guns at each other. I had a person send me a video. They were a student and they walked out of the class. The instructor had the students clear their guns out. And then Bill, turn to your right. Mickey, point your gun at Bill's left ear. Dry fire a shot at his ear so you can see your sights pointed at a human ear. Bill, draw your gun pointed at Mickey's sternum. Dry fire a shot. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, no, like
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
It's,
That's insane, right?
yeah. It's a again. I'm an old man now, but that wasn't unusual back in the day. I mean,
This is a younger guy
no, I'm hip, but I'm
doing
saying
it.
it's weird how some of that shit that before we knew better, right? Before we had started having a lot of training accidents and shit, and what guys thought was acceptable versus what's acceptable. And I agree that is unfucking acceptable. But he obviously learned that somewhere, right? Or in his brain, he felt there was some validity to that, and he unfortunately hasn't had the mentorship or the experience to go whatever benefit you think you're getting does not fucking the risk far outweighs whatever that
Right.
minuscule thing might be. um, I remember, I won't say the guy's name. I going to a firearms instructor conference, and there was a dude there, interesting cat. But we would be shooting. He'd call it. You're on the whistle, whatever the fuck. You're going to engage your target with 4 rounds of center mass type of shit, right? And so he would toot the whistle, and everybody would start and draw the pistol, start shooting, and then you reholster, and then you give you a new round count, and you do the same thing. But he did this in front of the group, and he would be walking in front of the line, back and forth, tooting the whistle, right? And so we're all pop, 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 and type of shit.
So he would just make sure he was between a couple of shooters.
No, he would continuously be moving and tooting this whistle. And so his
So it was
point
the
was,
shooter's job to control his muzzle and not shoot the instructor.
right, right. And so that was his point was, if you're in the mall, right, and the shooting happens, you need to be aware of all of the people that are going to start to scatter and maybe not fire right now, even though the bad guy's trying to kill you, right? Because now you got mom and the baby carriage coming between you and the guy that needs to get shot. So you need to stay aware of what's going on around you and modulate and control your decisions and this and that. And I remember tripping the fuck out when this was going on, right? I was like, this is fucking crazy, right? Type of thing. I understood his point, but I think he could have made that in a different
He
way.
just wasn't worth the squeeze.
Exactly, right. And so I was fairly young then, and this guy was already old, so I presume he ain't teaching no more. But shit like that. I mean, I've done. So I'm assuming you've done shit with barrels, right? Where you put like 3 barrels in a row, and then you'll go left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right. We used to do that with fucking people.
Dude, the first time I did a snake drill, and this is many years ago, I don't want to say the instructor's name, but very famous SF guy. lines us up like 20 dudes deep, and I'm the only guy there that's not a copper or a soldier. And these guys are all fucking kitted out with helmets and shit. And I'm like jeans and a t-shirt. And he stands me, I'm at the front of the line, and there's some steel like 15 yards in front of me. This is rifles in steel. And then he demos it, and I'd watch him come past me, and he's shooting steel, and the shit's 15 yards from me with rifles, and the bullets are coming past you, and I'm like, what the fuck? You know, like, I don't even know these guys. There's zero efficacy in me shooting guns past these guys' heads. I don't work with them. We're not bailing out of cars together. I
Right.
mean, their only value is shooting past other humans and being really careful. But like, like we do that class or that drill in class with barrels all the time, and I tell people this drill is done with dudes like standing here, not barrels, and they're all like, "What the fuck?" We did that drill sideways with two divergent groups of shooters moving continually around the barrels. And I was always the dude going behind motherfuckers, telling dudes, I'm going behind you as you're moving, shooting target. Because I don't know any of you. And it's just, I grab dudes and just shove them forward a half step as rifles are going.
Yeah.
But hearing that, like, yeah, that shit's, and that's also a know your audience. These guys were all on different teams and stuff, but they weren't on a team together, which makes no sense to me.
Even it, so we have learned, right? And I guess that what really would, if we bring this full circle, the shooting training, shooting, and that type of stuff, we have evolved immensely, and I think it's for a good thing sometimes, right? So I didn't think twice in 1995, I think when I came on SWAT, that doing a snake drill with my teammates as the barrels, and then being a barrel, I didn't think anything about it. Does that make sense? Because it's real.
Sure.
If you put it into context, it's not hard shooting. Does that make sense? There's
Yeah.
nothing hard about it. It's just trying to get in your head. There's a human being down there now. In hindsight, though, what a bunch of buffoons, right? I mean, that is, like you said, the juice just wasn't worth the squeeze. I mean, if a fella, trips in a chuck hole or over a rock or some weird thing pops off, what value did you get out of it now when you got a teammate
His
shot?
brain tweaks out for a half a second.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah. It's just,
it's just, and I think the other thing that because it's not a hard shot, we were also over careful. Does that make sense? Where the barrels allow me to actually push the envelopes of my capability because the risk would be I put a hole in your blue barrel. Sorry about that type of shit. Does that make sense?
mhm.
And so I think that the training piece of it is to some degree it instills bad habits, meaning you're waiting too long to make the shot because you're being overly careful. Opportunities present themselves quickly in real life, right? And so if I've only trained to do that because I'm worried about everything else, and I may not press the shot that is available to me, and I'm thinking specifically about hostage rescue because I'm worried about being overly careful. All right. I mean, it's just there's a whole lot of really silly shit that has occurred in the past, but has paved the way for better training today. And I think really, man, in this day and age, you can't it's you the excuse really is no longer there. I mean, my example with the two fellows from Idaho, I mean, there's a lot of training available to you on the internet. If you get into it, if you're willing to spend some time dry firing, and then even if you don't have much as far as resources go, money for ammunition or time to get to a range, you can still build a pretty goddamn good high level of proficiency toward the task. Now, if you want to be a USPSA world champion, well, brother, you better start putting some pennies away and getting serious about it. If your objective is I want to be pretty damn good and be able to defend myself and my family for this unusual circumstance. I don't know if that's a really difficult thing to achieve as long as you pull your head out of the sand and start looking.
I like that. I like that. Did you read? You a book reader?
Yeah, I read every night.
What kind of books you reading right now?
I rotate fiction, nonfiction type of thing. So I read a bunch of shit about leadership on the nonfiction side, leadership stuff, historical shit, based on combat and lessons learned, things like that. Um, so I mean, let me think. What's the? I'm currently reading a Dean Koontz novel,
Oh,
which is
okay.
fiction.
Fiction.
I like Dean Koontz. I've liked him for a long time. Good books, man, on leadership. I think Paul Howell's book initially, even though he gets some bad rap these days of being a FUD or whatever, but leadership and training for the fight has got a lot of good lessons in it, which I think are still valid today. I reread that book.
We're calling Pop Paul a FUD now, huh?
Some people do. Hey, whatever. You want to fight him? That's what I always say.
Right,
Right?
right.
He's a FUD. You want to fight him? Just, I mean, it's just stuff like that, man. It's And when I say I read every night, I typically when I go to bed, I read for about 20, 30 minutes, put the book down and go to sleep. So
It's a good habit, better than staring at a phone screen.
yeah, I concur. Even though now it's an iPad screen.
Oh, you're reading on the book or reading on the iPad?
Yeah, yeah.
And still, you're not scrolling.
Right, right, right.
You're not scrolling. I've been reading paper again. I don't like reading those screens. Dude, I appreciate you taking the time to talk. I didn't know what we were going to exactly talk about. It ended up talking about a bunch of training shit, but you've got so many years doing it uh, with a high level of uh, exposure to bad things. And I think there was a lot of good value points that were brought up. I usually close out podcasts with this. If the people that are listening or viewing never crossed your path, never met you, what would you leave them with?
If they had never met me, I wouldn't leave them with anything.
If they never see you again, if they never cross your
Oh,
path in life, what would you leave them with?
um, man, there. I think just maintain some balance, right? Maintain some balance. Now that is dependent upon on your goals, right? I remember as a young copper, I was told, "Hey, man, don't this job is addictive. Don't lose sight of your family and your friends that aren't cops and this and that, and make sure you spend time doing things, blah blah blah." And of course, you get the juice and you want to be involved in everything. I mean, I remember being on vacation thinking about, I wonder if my squad's getting into some, good pursuits, or is there, the good, meaning crime, right? But I mean, my job was to fight crime, so are they getting involved in some shit that I wish I was there for? And it took me a long time, I think, to gain the maturity to recognize that was just fucked up, right? I need to make sure I'm spending time with my wife, spending time with my kids, maintaining my other hobbies, doing some shit, but also just be focused on what it is that you're trying to achieve. And the specific to this conversation, carrying a gun defensively, I am perfectly happy recognizing that I am never going to be a USPSA world champion. And the reason is I don't want to be. Does that make sense? It's not that I couldn't do it. I just don't, it's not a desire of mine. My desire is to be, baseline with my guns. And my baseline may be different than yours, but whatever that is, man, if you think you're there, then work on maintaining what you have, and that it causes work. Because you can't put something away and then expect to be the same after 3 months. You talk about tendonitis. I'm coming off a really severe tendonitis in my right arm forever. I gave it a big break. Shot for the first time last week, live fired, and it's flaring back up. Or in my head, I was like, well, whatever. I would rather maintain what I have and have a sore elbow than not shoot for like a year and see the degradation in my skill set as a result. So I don't know, just say I don't really have any profound fucking Confucius say type of bullshit for motherfuckers, right? Just try to have a fulfilling life. You'll find, I think, as I am becoming an older dude, things that were important 30 years ago ain't so fucking important now.
That was Confucius as fuck in a hillbilly sort of way.
All right, then. Well, there you go.
Well,
I,
it
I,
wasn't. I mean, the point was just whatever it was you felt like leaving. That was it. That makes sense. I like
yeah,
that.
I think, man, there's you'll see, and this is, of course, not everybody again generalizing shit. Don't get mad at me, but I'll see guys that shoot really good and they're 400 pounds, right? And I don't think that's balance. I mean, you can shoot a gun real good, but the gun doesn't solve everything. I'll see Herculeses, but they got no hand-to-hand skills, right? They can't throw knuckles. They can't. If I take them to the mat, they're going to have a bad day. If I go stand up with them, they're going to have a bad day, right? And so I think there's balance in some shit. And what I used to tell our SWAT guys is, man, you're decathletes, right? You got to be good. You don't have to be the best in the world at any one thing, but you got to be really damn good at a lot of things, right? So make sure you maintain balance in all those things. And that includes just life in general, man.
I like that. Yeah, it's easy to get really hyper focused on a singular thing, and then that becomes your thing. But can't shoot a heart attack, and a gun can't change your tire, and rescue your kid that's choking on something.
Yep. Yep.
Shoot that orange out of his throat. It's
Yeah,
true. It's
that's
true.
true.
You gonna be at SHOT Show?
No, I haven't gone in a couple years, man. All I've ever gotten out of SHOT Show is a cold and sore feet, so I kind of quit going a couple years ago. I think everybody
Mhm.
should go if you can, right? I mean, it's super neat. I, I got benefit early on from putting names to or faces to names type of thing. Hey man, I've talked to you on the phone before, type of shit, right? Talking about whatever, and so I think there's some value in that, and dudes should go. But for me, I'm already. I mean, I did 57 classes last year, so I'm already spending a bunch of time away from home. And so going to SHOT Show just is no longer important to me.
You taught 57 courses.
Yeah.
That's a lot of courses.
Yeah. I mean, some of those are like two in the same week, but I count
Mhm.
that as two classes, obviously, because they're two separate events, that type of shit. And then
Yeah,
some of those are just single, they're little 1 day classes that I'm doing locally or shit like that. But anyway, so
that's a lot.
yeah, for a retired guy, I'm working quite a bit.
I dig it. I
Yeah.
appreciate you. How do people find you? How do they follow you if they want to check out your shit online?
It's on Instagram. I'm Tap Rack Tactical, all one word. On Facebook, it's just my name, Bill Blowers. The Tap Rack page got hacked on Facebook, and so it's still there, but I can't do anything to manipulate it anymore. So hit me direct on as Bill Blowers. Website is www.tap-rack.com, and then there's an email button on there. If you want to send me an email, you just click it and it'll open it up for you and send it off.
On the Facebook thing, if you pay the ransom I asked for, I'll give you the password back, but you have not paid the ransom. So
Yeah,
that's funny.
yeah.
I appreciate you. You guys that viewed or listened, if you dug the conversation and found some value in it, share it. Put a comment in the comment section, and we'll see if we can get an answer to you. And as always, be well. Don't be dickheads. Tell somebody you love them. You're going to die anyway. Somebody's going to take all your guns. They're going to sell them, and they're going to probably buy a fucking Corvette or a jet ski with it. So everything matters or nothing matters. It just depends on how you look at it, I guess.
Yeah.
Visit our website, CarryTrainer.com, for information about classes held throughout the U.S., CarryTrainer apparel, and upcoming projects. You can also email us at training@CarryTrainer.com for information about setting up your own private course or speaking engagement. Training@CarryTrainer.com or CarryTrainer.com. Ooh, that's so nice and toasty. Chilly winter day. Hey, want to make sure that you guys know that this episode of the Higher Line podcast has been brought to you by Ignis Lux Coffee. Ignis Lux, Latin for firelight. A reminder to let your fire burn bright. We are only here but for a little while, and there's no sense in drinking crummy coffee when there's coffee like this available. Small batch roasted in fluid bed roasters. Check that out. Less than 1% of all the coffee in the world is done in fluid bed roasters. Why? Because it's more work, but it gives you a much better product. IgnisLuxCoffee.com. Roasted fresh, sent right to your door. Check it out.